You're listening to Well, I Laughed, Part 2 of Rumor Has It. Dearest Reader.
Don't know if you're going to keep that part or not.
I don't know,
but
probably.
Okay, great. Sweet. I feel like now I'm getting to the point where if I want you to keep something, I'll be like, not sure if you're going to keep that or not. Because you're like, bet I will. And I'll be like, excellent.
I know, that's why I don't ask you anymore. Because it used to be like, you said you don't know if you want to keep this or not. And then I'm like, I'm not going to ask you anymore. I'm just going to keep it.
Okay. As a yuppie, granola-esque, sweater-wearing white man in Denver, I'm about to do the thing that gives me, at least in my daily routine, the most anxiety.
That's insane that that's what gives you the most anxiety. I just opened champagne and it shot into the ceiling.
Yeah, I almost lost an eye. The answer was I'm about to open a kombucha and they just kind of get really fizzy. And I just don't want it to spray everywhere because then it smells like vinegar.
That's your anxiety?
I think you and I both know that's not my only anxiety.
Still mad about it.
All right. So I teased something in the living room before we came down. And I was like, wait. I cannot tell you right now. Friends, and obviously you know this. I don't, but you guys know this. We are on snow day watch right now.
Oh, are we?
Yeah, 100% we are. And so if you see...
I might not have to go into the office tomorrow.
Wait, is it just aligned to when DPS gets a snow day?
Well, that at least makes it easier when I like want to tell my boss, because I've told him now that I want to go in every day, so he's like holding me accountable, right?
Isn't it awful when people hold you accountable to the things that you've said and planned? Yes.
But this one is like, because he's lived in Denver long enough that I'm like, school's canceled here because like DPS might be a little different than Jeffco. Jeffco like never canceled school. So I feel better about being like, I'm not gonna go in today.
Every time Jeffco, which is half mountains, by the way, half their schools are nestled in the mountains.
Yeah.
Every time Jeffco doesn't call a snow day, it's so funny because obviously I'm on Twitter, like refreshing like Denver closures, snow day, whatever else. All of the Jeffco students and staff post on Twitter the famous Lord Farquaad tweet. Some of you may die, but that is a risk I am willing to take.
At least I think it was my junior year. Every time they didn't call a snow day and we were expecting them to, it was like the worst snowstorm we had ever had. And then every time they did, it was like nothing.
Right.
And so we were like, how do you mess up this consistently? Like this actually doesn't make sense.
We're expecting 3 to 5, and I'm afraid we're going to get 1 to 3.
1 to 3 could still be bad though, because the ground has been really cold lately.
Yes, it has. And while we're expected to get 3 to 5, surrounding areas are expected to get 4 to 8, which I always feel like is good. Like, push those numbers up.
Those are rookie numbers. You gotta
exactly.
Get those
Let's go.
up.
It's actually crazy being at the gym, and it's like, well, you could watch Fox News destroy our democracy, or you can watch the weather on 8 channels.
Everyone has a different prediction.
No, it's actually so funny. They clearly run at different times during the broadcast because I switched from like channel 6 to channel 7 to channel 8 to channel 9 over the course of my workout. Yeah. Oh so just having kind of a silly little time, but having a good time.
Yeah.
How are you?
Yeah, mental health do be mental healthin'.
That happens sometimes.
Sometimes I feel like I'm just like not in my body, which is really fun. And we're here now. Also, I got jury duty. I never told you guys because I didn't want to jinx it. And so here's the rundown.
That is with love, just an absolutely bonkers thing to hear. I was afraid that someone was going to take jury duty away from me, so I didn't say anything.
I didn't want to jinx anything. So
it's not a treat on your birthday.
I know, but I still had high hopes. So here's what happened, y'all. I got jury duty. I think I got it sent in like October or something like that. And I opened it and I was like, great. It was for December 2nd or something. And I was like, cool. And then I just kind of like put it on the fridge and put it on my calendar and then forgot about it and like requested the day off and whatever. And December 1st comes and I'm like, I pull the jury summons down to like fill out the little card thing that you're supposed to fill out. And that's when I realized that it's for Denver County, not Jefferson County. So I used to live in Denver and I had just moved. And so, but in order to get an exception to jury duty, you have to submit it like 5 days prior or something like that. Okay. So either way, I had to go in to like submit that like I can't
do it.
I can't do it. And so I had to go in, and of course Denver is like super efficient. That was sarcastic. I waited in line for like an hour and a half before I even got to the place where I could give my card. And so I finally get through security. I'm waiting in this line forever. I like know way too much about the people in front and behind me in line. It was like appalling. It was my worst nightmare. And I was also sick, so I was like holding tea, and I was like, no one stand too close to me. And anyway, so I hand it in. She's like, the lady is like, oh, so you don't live in Denver County, you can't serve. And I was like, okay, cool. I like knew that. And she was like, and you'll hear from your county if they need you. And I was like, great, I'm never going to hear from them. So I turn around and leave. And then, like literally a week later, I get a jury summons for Jefferson County. I was like, the way I sent a text to like at least Grant,
right?
Because I was like, it's happening. I was really excited about the Denver one. Excited's the wrong word. I was really like intrigued, I guess, because it was the criminal court, and because Denver has separate courts, so you know prior which court you're going to.
Criminal or civil, for those of us who weren't civic skirlies back in
criminal or civil, yeah. And it was going to be criminal court. Jeffco has a combined court, so I didn't know, and I went in today, and they like pull you into this room. Obviously, they like took my card. They accepted it, and I was like, "Ooh, I'm past the gates.
I'm in."
I'm in." And then I sat there, and they like give the whole speech, and they're like, "There's 5 cases today, and like they'll come in one by one to pull the jury pool that's been randomly selected." And so the first lady comes, she pulls 40 people. The second person comes, they pull 18, then like 18, and then another like 20 or something like that. And
it
then
is actually like a really exciting process. You're like, wow, look at our justice system like at work.
Yeah. But it also, so many names got called and none of them were mine. And then, and I was like, I feel like it's a gym class all over again. And then finally the guy came back out, and he was like, the 5th case got postponed because of some reason. So the date got pushed back, so you guys are all free to go. And so I was like, okay.
Do you have the headspace for an anxiety question right now?
Yeah.
When you were sitting in that room, were you headphones in or headphones out?
Headphones out. Mostly because when I first came in, they were playing that video that like explains the procedures, and then the amount of time in between.
You mean the one from the 90s?
Yeah. The one
that all courts have?
Yeah, that they're all like, oh my God, the words that they were saying, I kept like scoffing, and I was like, I can't do that in here. But they were like, you might think that this is just a duty you have to do, but actually a lot of jurors actually leave saying that they feel so fulfilled in doing their civic duty. And I was like,
asking my friends to judge debate tournaments.
Yeah.
You might view this as just a favor for that friend that won't ever forget it if you say no. But a lot of people have said, yeah, I guess I could do this again.
And they've kind of enjoyed it. Yeah, that's literally what was happening. And I was like, okay, calm down. Like you're overplaying it. And then they did like interviews with like past jurors, and they were like, I just felt so connected to my other jurors. It's like, what is happening?
It's actually funny because there's like no getting out of it.
No.
Like we're I'm here, but I'm also required.
It was
to
like
be
the
here.
DMV, but a little worse because you're like literally can't leave. Like they will stop you if you try and leave. And I was like, we're all just like in a chair facing the same direction for like no reason.
It's the closest anyone in America gets anymore to the draft.
Yeah, that's what
and I don't mean the NFL draft.
Oh my God.
So then on that note too, about the Denver Municipal County's governmental efficiency.
Yeah.
When I graduated from Nebraska a couple of years ago, really just 2 or 3, I graduated also with a Nebraska teaching certificate that was good for 5 years. And so took that and immediately taught in California, and then immediately moved to Denver. And so it was year like 3 going into year 4 of me living in Denver before I was like, oh crap, I got to like renew this and probably like, do it for Colorado, which meant I needed to go through like the Colorado state government's background check and not just like our local school district's ones. And so part of that requires you to get fingerprinted like kind of by the FBI or whatever.
It's
it's like a really big, I think it's the Colorado Department of Investigation, which okay, great. Oh yeah, sure.
You walk in and you're like, am I gonna get arrested?
I walk in, and apparently this governmental office that I walked into does 2 things. So I walk in and a loud woman at the counter goes, "Are you here to register as a sex offender?" And I go, lower your voice.
And also no.
And that day I shaved my head. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, but I was like, lower your voice. 1, 2, I'm a teacher here to do fingerprinting.
Yeah.
And she goes, oh, the second door on the right. And I was like, oh, okay.
That could have been your first question.
Part of me kind of feels like this whole job could be a sign, but whatever. I'm not here to tell you how to do your job. And I wouldn't have said that at all if you hadn't come for me. First words out of your mouth. And I, for the record, I know she's just doing her job.
Oh, yeah.
She also loudly declared to a lobby, quote, are you here to register as a sex offender? A statement that does not get said to me all that often.
That is really out of the blue. That is out of the blue.
Especially because I'm like gonna go be a teacher and then go get some lunch.
I'm gonna go take care of our city's youth.
They're like, are you the worst kind of criminal?
Are
and I'm
you
like,
legally
no.
not allowed in a school?
Why is this the same department?
We were walking, Casey and I were walking the other day, and we're like walking past some of these houses, and Casey goes, oh yeah, I think that's the big scary house that like you should avoid. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? And he was like,
I'm looking to move into this neighborhood, and he has not told me any of this.
He was like, I think there's like 3 registered sex offenders that live there. And I was like, what? It's across the street from an elementary school.
No.
And then he was like, that elementary school isn't like
an elementary school anymore.
Yeah, it's not an actual elementary school anymore. And so I was like, okay, still weird.
Yeah,
like,
agreed.
Also, thanks for telling me that now. Like, definitely walked past his house a bunch in the dark.
What's a little funny to me is that you were the one that I had assumed would know that information.
I try to kind of avoid that information because I'll get too in my head about it.
Yeah, I also kind of tend to try to avoid that information, but that's mainly because I don't have children of my own and I don't want to meet strangers.
I feel like Casey got really into the whole home buying search, and I don't doubt that he figured.
Yeah, he did.
I don't doubt that he was like, where would we send our kids that we don't want? Like, I'm 99% sure that's what happened.
Hilarious.
Yeah, I know. Anyway.
Sorry. To be clear, just because we just said a lot in the last 3 minutes, hilarious that Casey's like, well, let me plan out the education of these children
that
we don't want.
For our dogs.
If it makes you feel better, I have at times thought about, like, God, what happens if either one of my siblings has kids and then for whatever reason, like,
passes.
I gotta, or I have to raise them.
That came out really fast. I'm sorry.
Or if they die. Oh, okay, great. Thanks so much.
That's an example of me, brain not in head right now. I'm floating somewhere. I don't really know. I finished these notes earlier today and was like, that's all I had to do. Dissociated.
Like, best case scenario is they go to prison for 5 years and I have to be the one that like takes care of that
child. Still not good.
Know? No, right. No. So you're right. It's like a real Bonnie and Clyde situation. But shucks, what was I going to say? Oh, actually, in reference to my siblings, we're pivoting on the word siblings.
Okay.
Just the link is the word siblings for those of us who are like, what is up with these two? So Griffin was with us for New Year's.
Yes.
And Griffin is getting older. He is 29 now. He'll turn 30 in 2025.
That's wild.
I know, my little baby brother.
It was so funny at drinks on like the day before New Year's Eve. He said that, and like you and Lydia went, what?
Exactly. Because I still don't view myself as old. But Griffin being 30, geez, Grandpa, you know? So anyways, Griffin and I were talking on the way back into Denver after our time up in the mountains for New Year's, and he was like, and it's just like... just like gays are so judgy and Tyler and his friend are just so fit. And I was like, oh, did you just for like 10 seconds experience the kind of body dysmorphia that my community has? Okay. Are you now realizing how brave I am to celebrate for how I look the way that I do unabashedly? That's right. Also, my brother is ripped. Like for a man about to turn 30, hasn't lost any of his hair, has like 0% body fat. And so part of me is like, hilarious that you, hands down, the most in-fit one of your entire group, feels deep insecurity around just two regular granola gays. I mean, if you want to see some ripped bodies, like we can show you some of this, you know? Welcome to Colorado. Yeah. Literal Thunderdome.
There's a difference between being fit and having a fast metabolism. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. And there's a difference between like enjoying food and being willing to eat pea protein for every meal.
That too. Yup.
If you're not.
There's a difference between a cardio body and a heavy lifting body.
And then I have a real Santa Claus in training body. You know, Jolly has been used.
word jolly has been used.
And that's not an invitation for you to tag me and everything that says jolly, by the way. Because apparently I now have to clarify
It's literally just me and Griffin that can maybe say that on a good day.
Right. Well, Griffin doesn't care what kind of day I'm having. He'll just
okay.
say it. And then if it's in a good day, hilarious. And if it's a bad day, I'll say something truly so foul and awful that you'd be like, wow, he hasn't read Brene Brown at all.
Yeah, that's rough, buddy.
I have just one more story, and then I'd love to hear your story.
Okay.
First, maybe a question. Is your story a haha story or like a story?
Haha story.
Cool, fun. Okay, so then I have full runway to say this.
Yes. And also I'm playing with not form, but length.
Okay, cool. So shut up or yap away.
I don't know.
Great,
Because
okay.
I said yap away the last time I thought it would be a short episode. This
I got talents you don't even know.
I know. This one is like 8 pages shorter than the Santa episode.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
so I think it's actually
solid stuff.
Yeah. I'm playing with how many pages like equals how many hours.
Yeah.
So we're experimenting today.
Okay, well then my last story, and it's a sentimental one.
Well,
I know about you. You have done such a good job about normalizing like mental health care in this podcast.
You shut the fuck up.
That last month when I called you and was like, I'm cracking, girl. Like this doesn't happen to me all that often, but like the walls are coming down around me.
I was just sitting at my desk and I know my coworker who was sitting behind me was like,
And so obviously you were like super supportive on the phone, but then you had just great aftercare. Like you checked in like 2 days later after I'd eaten something, and then like a week after that you were like, so do we need to talk about like workflow for the next couple weeks to like, and then we're just like receptive and being like, I can help accommodate anything. You just need to let me know so I can accommodate you. And so you got a lot of shout outs early on in this podcast venture of ours for normalizing that kind of stuff. But I just kind of want to bring that back, that I'm appreciative of that. I didn't do it the very first episode back because I was like, there's too much stuff going on. But I just thank you for being a wonderful podcast partner.
You're a wonderful partner.
Say it back.
One of our listeners DM'd us like thanking me for talking about like the libido thing at the end of Dr. Ruth's episode, and the way I like actually started crying, I was like, in the message was like, and you made me start crying at the end, and I was like, well, now I'm crying reading about you crying.
Yeah, you're crying.
And now we're all just crying. I'm super emotionally stable.
Yeah. No, it's good. Honestly, I think we do some of our best work when we're kind of like cornered animals a little bit.
I'm really interested to see how this story's going to end up.
I'm interested to hear what the story is.
I'm excited for you to hear this story.
And also because just between you and I and our little small business text message thread that's full of TikToks.
Yeah.
You and I have talked about so many different themes, like current and then future. This is part 2 of Rumor Has It.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm excited.
Have you picked your next theme?
Getting a lot closer because I remembered today, and that's always a really good sign.
That's always a good
when it
sign.
Starts to make its way onto the mental to-do list. Oh, baby, we're a week away.
We're cooking.
At most, we're a week away. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, 100%. Perfect. Okay. Here is my first question.
Okay.
Do you have any good gossip for us?
All the time. Yes. What do you want to know? I mean, I am bound by law for a lot of it, Student Privacy Act, but like, I don't know.
Can you give us one piece of gossip that like you can like legally share?
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
And I hope you appreciate this. Oftentimes, I don't view something as gossip unless it's like truly salacious and would fundamentally alter your life experience.
It doesn't even need to be that.
Otherwise, I just collect really interesting tidbits of information about people.
Perfect.
So I actually kind of have to keep like lowering the stakes in my own head a little bit.
Like you do with the pyramid of your needs.
Yeah, but I think in a more healthier way, because I'm like, okay, all of these secrets up here, those are secrets,
those are
not
secrets.
gossip.
Those ones are actually locked up.
I mean, I have that I can legally share.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm excited.
One of the people in our orbit recently purchased a home.
Yes.
And someone else in our orbit thinks it's too big of a home for them, that they should have gone even smaller.
That's funny.
I know it is.
That's really funny. Because I'm like 99% sure I know who everyone is in that story.
One of them will shock you.
Doctors don't want you to know.
Exactly. People in these 5 states would be shocked to find out.
Okay, so that's the first part of the episode, just gossip. But then we're gonna talk about, because obviously the theme is rumor has it, right?
Whole
That's
first
where we're
part of the
getting
episode done. Nice.
Yep,
We are
done.
cooking.
Yeah, especially for me. We're gonna talk about Mary Delarivier Manley. So her name is Mary, and then like separate words, and then Riviere.
D-A or D-E?
D-E.
Okay.
And then Manley.
Delarivier.
Riviere, yeah. Okay. And then that ends up becoming shortened to, she just stops going by Mary. She goes by Delarivier Manley, all one word, Delarivier. And then towards the end, or I'm just going to keep referring to her by this, but Delarivier gets shortened to Delia.
Wait, hold on. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Is this story based on the continent of South America?
No.
Oh, okay, cool. Sweet. I was like, I got a suggestion, but I thought it was just me. So if it came across and we both looked at it, I hadn't researched it yet.
This
but
one
I was
is
like,
not one that I have seen come through. I'm sure it's very possible someone has recommended it.
Again, all the guessing, 2 sentences before it's all revealed. Yeah. But that's part of the fun.
We're way farther than 2 sentences away from you knowing what the actual topic is. So Delia Manley was born April 7th, 1663.
Okay, so she's an Aries.
That actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it does.
1663 in Jersey, not New Jersey, but the original Jersey. See episode Miserables for a full discourse on that fact.
And then, wasn't that the same one where it was flying gorillas? No, that was the James Bond episode.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so her father was Sir Roger Manley, who was a royalist military officer and like history buff, historian. He wrote a lot of history papers, it seems like.
And sorry, tell me the year again just so I can place it.
1663 is when she was born.
Wow, we got really close.
Yeah.
Wow, like time-wise.
Oh, yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
No wonder you were panicked.
There's,
10 years younger than our girl Lamapin.
Most of this is going to happen in the early 1700s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, really close.
Yeah, I know. That's why when you said years, I was like, oh, God.
Oh, my God, did I just write this down wrong? Also, sorry, just because we're already sidetracked, 10 more seconds. In elementary school, our elementary school principal, her name was Mrs. Manley. And I didn't appreciate the true nuance of a name like that until well into high school.
Yeah.
Anyways, continue.
No, you're good. Her mother was Marie Catherine, who was a French-speaking noblewoman from the Spanish Netherlands. The Manley family is an old family. At the time that Delia was born, her father had held her family had held the same coat of arms since the 1200s.
Wow.
I looked up the coat of arms. It's not super interesting.
It's just old.
It looks like a kid maybe could have drawn. It's like literally a left hand, and it's colored black on a white background.
Okay.
That's it.
Oh, okay.
And then it has like the weird coat of arms, like filigree kind of around the outside, but it's just like white square left hand inside. That's it.
Okay.
I was like, okay, that's not as fun as I thought.
Fascinating. Well, I mean, it's left hand, right hand, left hand. It just depends on the direction of the wind is blowing. Left hand, right hand. Left hand, right hand.
Left hand, right hand. Left hand, right hand. Yeah.
Hold me up to a higher standard.
No, I will not. Oh my gosh. How did I scroll? Okay. We're already getting into it. 1688. This is the sentence that I read and then had to look up the term. Anyway, her cousin John Manley married her bigamously in about 1688. Bigamously
What? Spell it?
Bigamously. Monogamous. I can't fucking pronounce it.
Okay, I have never even heard of this
Anyway,
word.
it's when you marry someone and you're already legally married to someone else.
Oh, okay.
There's some discourse about whether Delia knew or not that he was married. I think she didn't. I think she found that out later.
Okay.
Anyway.
Real Junius Brutus kind of situation going on.
Also, if you marry someone and you don't have to change your last name, be concerned.
Yeah.
Be worried.
Listen, British listeners, write in if I'm missing like a core piece of context here. But I saw recently that the United Kingdom is exploring banning first cousin marriages.
I'm sorry, what?
Uh-huh.
Who's doing that?
I like I said, British listeners, UK listeners, write in, because I saw that and I was like, I thought I left Nebraska.
Yeah. What do you mean?
And that's why I can say it.
Yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough. I'm concerned.
But fair enough.
Yeah. So John Manley, her cousin and now husband, I guess, would eventually become a Tory member of Parliament. Here's something I want you to elaborate on. Can you talk about what the difference is between the Tories and the Whigs? Because they're going to come up a bit. And I didn't want to look it up.
You should have. I can tell you the difference between them, like in modern UK politics.
That's fine.
Because the Whigs don't exist anymore.
Yeah, I know that.
Today, the Tories are the like conservative. Many people call it the Republican Party of the UK. That's not like a perfect like amalgamation, but essentially have the Tories, which is a more conservative economic deregulation, a little bit of social conservatism, although not in the way you see it here in the U.S. conservative movements, and they are countered by more progressive like labor movements. But if it's in the 1600s, I wonder if the big issue that divides the government is their relationship with the monarch.
It was.
Oh, hey, hooray!
And I don't remember which side was which. Honestly, I didn't want to know because I didn't want that to influence how I was viewing these characters. But anyway, so he was a Tory member of Parliament. So that was 1688. This is just like kind of a not quick, but quick-ish timeline.
Do we ever find out what happened to the first wife?
Nope, I didn't.
So
Truly, it doesn't matter.
Do they live together?
Couldn't tell you.
Okay, cool.
I literally it was
cool.
way off my radar.
Okay.
Like John Manley gets brought up one other time, and that's about it.
Sure.
Yeah. He's unimportant. February 1696. She publishes Letters Written by Mrs. Manley. It's a short autobiographical narrative of a journey from London to Exeter by stagecoach, and that journey happens in June of 1694.
Okay, travel blog, absolutely.
Like literally.
World's first influencer.
Yeah. So during this time, historians know that she was probably deeply in debt due to some creditors, and for this reason was likely very short on cash, and she might have also potentially been pregnant. So she was trying her hand at writing anyway to kind of make money. I think because her father was big into writing, I think that probably influenced her growing up. Yeah, and so she was able to get that published. In March of 1969, so that same year.
1869.
1696, sorry.
Yep, cool.
February 1696 and then March 1696.
Okay.
Her first play, The Lost Lover.
Ooh.
Okay, so the names of some of her stuff are really long. So this is The Lost Lover, semicolon, or The Jealous Husband, colon, a comedy.
Listen, before I pay my 2 cents, I need to know if I'm going to enjoy this or not. So I need to know the big reveal now.
Comedy.
Yeah.
It's a comedy, yeah.
Because it's called The Jealous Lover.
The Lost Lover.
The Lost
or
Lover.
The Jealous Husband, a comedy.
The Lost Lover. Is it like my lost lover, my jealous husband, my lost lover, my jealous husband? Or is it like depends on your POV? Is she just spoon feeding nuance to these people?
I wouldn't be surprised with either.
Okay.
I think she's very intellectual with some of what we're going to get into.
Me trying to teach my students. Here, let me spoon feed this nuance to you right now.
And what do you think that means? So her first play was produced at Drury Lane Theatre, which is still around today. And I looked it up. Currently, if you're in the area, I don't know, The Little Mermaid is playing there right now.
Ooh, fun. Want to go?
January 12th. So probably won't be playing by the time this releases. But anyway, that same year in May, so 1696, her second play, The Royal Mischief, colon, a tragedy, is produced at a rival theater company at Lincoln's Inn Fields.
We should start titling our episodes this way.
Yeah. A tragedy.
The Doctor is in a comedy? Question mark?
Really sad. really, really sad.
Dramedy.
Dramedy, yeah. Unfortunately, all of them are going to end up in that category.
Yeah.
Okay. After this, it seems that Delia kind of like lost interest in writing for the theater. Like she had 2 successes and was like, too easy. So following this, Delia claims that she was living, quote, in a pretty retirement some few miles out of town where she diverted herself chiefly with walking and reading.
Okay, so she paid off the debts and she was like, I want to go back to the one perk of being a woman right now, which is not working.
Exactly. Unfortunately, that's Delia's account. Some historians don't know if that's actually true. Sure. So it is most likely that she was living off her earnings from the play and or some kind of stipend that she was receiving from her husband. It's possible she was living with like a sister or something at the time.
A single mom who wrote 2 plays.
And also an autobiographical journey of her trip from London to Exeter.
Someone put on a horrendous red wig, and then pretended to like grab some kind of weapon, and it was Reba McEntire of this BS.
Yes.
Did not shorten it to BS, and I was like, hilarious.
Yeah, it was
absolutely.
Good. So sometime in late 1696 or early 1697, Delia was asked by a woman named Catherine Trotter to influence her husband John Manley to assist an incarcerated man named John Tilley. So I just said a lot of names.
A lot of Johns, if you could run that back.
Yeah.
What is this, the Gene episode?
So there's a John Tilley. John Tilley is in jail. Her husband.
For what?
I'll talk about it in a second.
Okay, cool.
A woman who knows John Tilley, Catherine Trotter, is like, hey, I know someone who might be able to help. So she goes to Delia and is like, hey, can you influence your husband, who's a member of parliament?
Delia Manley.
Yeah, Delia Manley. Can you ask your husband, John Manley, to like try and influence his release,
so
John Tilley's release?
Catherine asks Delia to ask Mr. Manley to help get John Tilley out of prison.
Yes.
Got it.
Yay!
Hooray! We need to start using these cranes, by the way, for this.
Yes, I know. So John Tilley was the warden of the Fleet prison, and he had been arrested due to some kind of parliamentary inquiry into the management of the prison.
So embezzlement.
Probably. I honestly don't know. What I do know is Delia's first response to Catherine Trotter when Catherine like asked her was like, well, are you lovers?
I'll only do it if you're lovers.
Yeah.
She was literally like, now kiss for reals.
No, she was like, you're only asking this because you two are like
I'm
screwing.
not going to help your little boyfriend get out of prison. Okay?
And so Catherine was like, no.
That's so real.
Yeah. Catherine was like, no, I promise we're not. Delia was like, yeah, fucking right.
The amount of children, it's not like it's only happened 3 times, but that feels like a lot.
Yeah.
Kids who've come up to me and be like, can you tell me when Maia Warner's like 3rd period class, like where it's at? And they go, can I ask why? Do you like have her laptop or something? And they're like, no, I want to like ask her a question. And I was like, then no, I will not be letting you like stalk
I'm
her.
a girl's girl, but no.
I mean, like if you want to know that information, do it the way we did, which is secretly follow them that period and accept the tardy that you're going to take to period 3. But now you know, okay? Obviously, don't do that.
Men are
all of
high
us.
schoolers are ridiculous. Yeah. So Delia is like, "Are you lovers?" Catherine's like, "No," and Delia's like, "I don't believe you." And so Delia is now like, "I don't know if I can trust Catherine Trotter, but I do want to like try and be a good friend." So she says like, Catherine, I'll consider helping you, but I have to meet John Tilley myself.
You've broken my trust, but I still feel obligated to help you. Literally couldn't be me, but that's, listen, on you, girl. New Year's
no, it's not even that Catherine's broken her trust. It's that she doesn't believe Catherine. And so therefore, if she doesn't believe Catherine about this one thing, how is she?
She's just like, just admit that you guys are lovers.
Just admit it.
It'd be hotter.
Yeah. I still won't help you. I'm honestly not sure what came of that situation.
Nice.
I am pretty sure whatever happens, John Tilley does get released.
Okay.
So I think she does go through with it.
Of those 4 characters, which are the ones that we need to carry with us?
Delia.
Okay.
And John Tilley will be mentioned once later on.
Okay.
So now that's over. We're in 1705/1706. So we're quite a few years in the future because that last thing was 1697. Delia likely picks up writing again at this point.
Okay, so she's back in debt.
She probably.
I get it.
Yeah. During her like hiatus, she only published a few poems. She was actually one of the first women to edit and contribute to an anthology of poetry by other women, and that was the 1700, it was published in 1700 volume of the 9 Muses. And 2 of those poems, I believe, are hers. So
far what she's done is she's married someone far too related to her.
Yes, and who was also married.
Gotten into debt, travel blog, 2 plays, donezo with that.
Yeah.
Peddled her influence just a little bit.
Yeah.
Back into debt. I mean, now I'm speculating.
Yeah.
And is writing again.
Yes.
All right.
Probably.
On a kind of a dream life.
Right. So some historians believe that she may have started writing, or she may have written something called Queen Zara and the Zarazians, which was published in 1705. But it's, I read like 2 to 3 sources that bring up Queen Zara, and one of them is like adamant that she wrote it. One of them is adamant that she didn't write it. Another one is like she might have written it. I don't know. So this one, no author has ever been credited, and people think it could be her because it seems similar to her prose and the time matches. One of the historians that says she definitely didn't is because in order to write this particular style of prose, that meant she had to meet certain people much earlier than it was thought that she met them.
Oh, okay.
So
a little literary investigation going on. Okay.
So that is a political satire, Queen Zara and the Zarazians.
Do you know what it's satirizing specifically?
No, but we'll talk about another thing that she does definitely write. So if she did, I said that. What isn't contested is that her next thing, or what we're going to consider her re-entrance to writing, begins with Almina, Almyna.
Yeah, Almina.
Almina, or, the Arabian Vow, a tragedy. I'm just kidding. A tragedy is not part of the title this time, but
it felt good though. That felt right. It felt authentic.
Well, my next sentence.
Tragedy.
The Arabian Vow, and it is a tragedy for stage. It's a play. So she wrote that.
Can I just say, it's such a fine line between like a legitimately good book title and something that your mom would read on a beach vacation, you know?
Yes. It's like, what are you learning? And like, half the time they don't know.
I've spoken loudly and proudly about how books do not need to be learned. They just need to be like fun. And like put some words in front of your face. Yeah. But sometimes it's just a picture of like a shirtless, now AI generated man. And it's like the butcher's affair, right? And it's like, what?
You don't know how right you are. But I'm now doing a Grant thing. You don't know what you've said until Listen, when I say what I've said, you will have heard what I have said. Yeah.
As a person who loves Sweeney Todd, I'm really excited that the magic word seemed to have been butcher in that situation.
Oh, no, it was the romance novels. Okay, yeah.
Butcher.
Good Lord. Are you a butcher or a sexual predator?
And let me tell you why. I was so confused, and then all at once, 101% of it downloaded, and I got it immediately, and I had a mouthful of kombucha.
Yeah, you did.
Continue.
I felt good about it. Okay.
Here for the butcher.
Yeah. So she writes that, and then in 1706, she writes The Unknown Lady's Packet of Letters, which includes anecdotes about some very well-known public figures. This is considered the beginning of Delia's political writing career. May of 1709, she releases what would be her most well-known piece.
Okay.
It's a really long title. We're going to refer to it by the New Atlantis because that's part of the title. But the full title is Secret Memoirs and Manners of Several Persons of Quality, of both sexes, from the New Atlantis, an island in the Mediterranean.
When I did Much Ado About Nothing in 7th grade, where I was unnamed chorus person and stage crew, I thought Much Ado About Nothing was too long of a name. Hit me with that one more time.
Secret Memoirs and Manners of Several Persons of Quality.
Secret Memoirs and Manners? Okay.
Of quality of both sexes from the New Atlantis, an island in the Mediterranean. We're just going to call it the New Atlantis.
Let's get one day shipping on Amazon.
This was funny because I was writing all of this and I kept seeing the title New Atlantis and I couldn't find a date for it at first. But I could find a date that was like May 1709 for Secret Memoirs ... persons of several persons of quality.
Oh, okay.
And that's how they were like shortening it. And I was like, that literally doesn't.
You're ignoring the historical record.
It's the New Atlantis.
Hilarious. Okay.
Also, like on the title of the book, the New Atlantis is like the two biggest words. So I think that's why it's called the New Atlantis. Anyway, this is a Tory political, satirical scandal chronicle.
Okay. So it's about people from the Tory party.
From the Whig party.
From the Whig party. Okay, so it's serving the Tories.
I believe so.
Okay, first Fox News just dropped. That's exciting.
So it was to expose the private vices of ministers, specifically from the Whig party, using thinly veiled pseudonyms.
Nice.
So the premise of the entire book is that it's a conversation between three female narrators who observe, report, and reflect on the patterns of life on the remote island of New Atlantis. There is the goddess of justice, whose name is Estrella, and her mother, whose name is Virtue. both of them are like goddesses and have the power of invisibility as part of their like being a goddess. And so they use this power to spy on the political and personal affairs of those in charge. They all kind of live on this island, the New Atlantis, which is like theoretically in the Mediterranean, together with the third narrator, who they call Lady Intelligence. The three of them witness Lady Intelligence is like more of a person.
I
think,
need
not
to
a goddess.
explain why I laughed at that.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think women are smart. Maya runs this show. It's just like Lady Intelligence sounds like a bad FX series. You're watching Lady Intelligence. And it's just like two FBI agents.
Yeah. Every character from what I could glean was like a virtue.
Okay.
Yeah. And so Estrella, Virtue, and Lady Intelligence witness public and personal corruption, broken lives, sexual scandal, and sexual assault. The three women are allowed to move and speak freely without violating the so-called, quote, feminine propriety of the time. And I'm going to have you read this piece.
The Return of Dramatic Readings by Grant.
I think, this is just from an article about the book. It's the boxed portion.
A reading.
From Grant.
From the New Atlantis.
Yes. Well, from someone talking about the New Atlantis.
From someone talking about the New Atlantis. Fix my turtleneck. Mm-hmm. It is anonymous gossip that is discursive equivalent of physical invisibility. And the power of Manley's fictions stems precisely from their deployment of popular gossip and rumor. A paradoxically authoritative mode of communication, because it is impossible to trace. Rumor and good gossip were the news of the politically disenfranchised. She showed how they could also be tools.
Mm-hmm. So she's essentially like analysis of the New Atlantis now is showing that she's giving power to women in the political field when they traditionally don't have it. They're like
giving power to women in non-traditional fields.
Like, you might not have a direct say in parliament, but especially if you're a woman of upper society and you're hearing things, you do have power.
Right.
So that part, rumor and gossip are the news of the politically disenfranchised, was amazing. Anyway, so obviously this whole thing pissed off the Whigs. And so they arranged to have Delia, her publisher, and printer arrested and thrown into prison.
Okay.
Ultimately, the legal proceedings didn't go far from here because Delia, quote, refused to reveal her sources and proclaimed that she was divinely inspired. Which is so funny.
I have no idea what you're talking about. It all came to me in a dream. And any parallels you draw to our current circumstance, well, that's your doing, not mine.
That's like
all of my characters are women.
Well, so the women are all seeing. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The women are the witnesses, but the people doing the actions are the men.
Real.
Yeah.
And so her other defense is that again, because she was going to be sued with libel, essentially.
Oh.
Her claim was that like I'm just retelling old stories that everyone knows.
It's also so beautiful because it's like, do the Whigs really want to draw that into a trial where it's like, well, who do you think character A is a reference to?
Why did you get so offended by this?
Right. Is character A supposed to be the first minister? Mm-hmm. Is character B, whatever else? I love that.
I know. She knew exactly what she was doing.
And do you know why I think she knew exactly what she was doing? Because as a woman at the time, especially like in a male-dominated role, like the power, like not the power, but the foresight and the nuance to be able to speak through when your own voice isn't there to do the speaking for you. Yeah. It's such a delicate skill that obviously she honed. I love that. She
figured that shit out. Yeah. She knew that any kind of rumor, whether new or old, could be used as political currency. So another reason the legal proceedings weren't likely pressured to continue was an effort to preserve what little dignity those Whig ministers that were like the subject of the book had left. So this is Delarivier Manley.
Oh, okay, Queen. Absolutely.
Yeah, incredible.
I mean, listen, she looks incredible. She looks exactly like every single painting from that time does.
Yeah.
She does somehow manage to have a choker from Claire's.
Yes, 100%. Like with a little dangly.
Right there, yes. Little dangly pearl or whatever it is.
Exactly.
100%.
So before we get into it, I decided to get a little science girl moment. And so we have
all of that was just pre-show, by the way.
We're still in pre-show, baby.
Good.
Just kidding. This is just how I arranged the notes. I decided to look into like the sociological, like causes and benefits of gossiping. So let's talk about gossip and its role in society. But first, let's define it. And in parentheses, I put, did you know I'm a level 2 accredited judge in speech and debate?
I had heard a rumor. I assumed it was gossip.
Careful what you say. Careful what you say. So the first definition we're going to work with is, quote, a general interest in the doing, the virtues, and the vices of others. And then this is a quote from one of the scientific articles, or one of the academic articles that I read on this. Namely, and according to popular view, gossip is not a particularly useful activity, and it is rarely seen as a system of transmitting relevant information. One of the results of such an unfavorable attitude towards this phenomenon is the fact that gossip is not a prominent topic in mainstream sociological research. Furthermore, it is often treated as a negative evaluative speech act. Quote, evil tongue, disrespectful, distasteful, and a nearly shameful activity. So what it's saying is that, like, because we don't view gossip as serious, there isn't enough research in it from a scientific perspective. And because of that, we also view it, it's like a nonstop, like, compounding thing. Because there's no research, we don't think it's serious. And because we don't think it's serious, there's no research. And then we continue to think it's like this evil thing.
So I have a student that has done some research on this for a speech. And one of the things that we end that speech with is there's that movie Women Talking. Do you remember what that was about?
Yeah.
And one of the things that she highlights at the end of her speech was that we all understand the dynamic around women talking, right? It's women, they've gathered together, it's just women to discuss something regarding their safety without spoiling anything from the movie.
Yeah.
And what my student points out in her speech is that there is no men talking, because even that very concept is kind of foreign to us.
Yeah.
Like, men can just openly discuss things
whatever
of
they want,
their concern, whereas women have to be delicate about it. A lot
the
of
female
times.
propriety.
Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly. So and then she does a wonderful job about tracing that knowledge that women have to oftentimes talk about things in secret to the rumors that ultimately took down Harvey Weinstein. It's a really well written speech. It's really interesting.
Yeah. Okay. So sociologists say that humans developed language, quote, in order to enable our ancestors to exchange information about the physical world they live in. And in defining it this way, it allowed for the trivialization of using communication for anything else. So we now think of these things as kind of a waste of time. And then this is another quote, if you want to read the one in the box.
A reading. Nonetheless, gossip represents a legitimate research problem, as it is an important form of social knowledge and social learning, a means of defining social norms, a mechanism of societal control, a means of enhancing or diminishing social prestige, a prominent element of nearly every social interaction and social exchange, and so forth, all of which are phenomena that are of key importance for social life in general, as well as for sociology as a science.
Yeah. Okay. All of what I just read since I introduced the topic of talking about it from a scientific perspective is from an academic article called The Sociology of Gossip and Small Talk, a Meta-Theory, and it's written by faculty from the University of Novi Sad in Serbia. This article makes an interesting connection between small talk and gossip, because in a similar vein, small talk also has that diminutive, like literally small talk in front of it. We think of it as useless. We think of it as like kind of a nuisance, and it's often contributes to social cohesion and structuring of social interactions, similar to what gossip will do. There is one study done in 1994 that concludes on an average 70% of conversation time is spent doing what that study determined as gossip or small talk. This is backed up by a different study that was done in 1997 that basically just collected data points by eavesdropping on conversations in public areas. I was like, get me on that board. Get me on it.
Here's the thing, though. They would not need to eavesdrop our conversations because we record, edit, and then share it with the world. Yeah,
they know what we talk about. Sometimes we're like, hold on, we got to gossip for a second. You're fine.
It's actually so funny when anyone in our group kind of brings in a new person. We're always kind of like, don't tell them about the podcast because we've talked about about you.
Yeah. Shh, shh, shh.
And while we are careful for the narratives we craft for ourselves, we're a bit more outside the
Cavalier
lines with
for
the
other
rest
people.
of you guys.
So yeah, the 1997 study was done by just like eavesdropping. They concluded 65% of speaking time was spent on topics considered small talk or gossip, with some variations relating to gender and age. So let's get more thorough of an understanding about how these scientists are defining gossip. Let's refine our definition.
Absolutely.
Did you know I'm a little too
I know. And I want to be like, wow, are you able to? Like, that's so. Like, to understand the debate over definitions is a huge part of understanding debate.
I know. So it's the identification and evaluation of a subject who is not present for that evaluation.
Okay.
So typically, at minimum, for a gossip encounter or whatever, you need to have 3 individuals: the target or the person who's being evaluated.
Go ahead.
We'll refer to them either as the subject or the target, and then there's the gossiper and the listener.
So you having out loud arguments in the shower by yourself is not gossip.
You're not sharing anything.
Right, because the shampoo bottles don't count.
Yeah, shampoo bottles ain't listening.
And then I told her, but she was like, but then I was like, right? And it's a conversation that has not happened.
The herbal essence bottle is like...
Exactly. Well, you're right, babes. Absolutely.
The 3-in-1 shampoo is like, no, I don't get it.
L'Oreal's like, say it in French.
Yeah. Pantene is like, now say it in a mirror.
And Maybelline is like, well, maybe. It's Maybelline. They only know one word.
We could do this. We could do this. Yeah. We're good.
I'm stone cold Steve Austin sober right now.
I know.
Because it's dry January.
Shocking.
So what's coming out of this? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a great time, though.
It's been a day for both of us, I think. So following the initial identification and evaluation, following the initial like, hey, can you believe that so-and-so? Following that, there can be various responses. The responses that they defined are like explanations, expansions, support, overemphasized effect, and challenges. So the first 4 are all kind of like amping up the gossip, right? And then the last one is like, well, no, like you don't actually understand, right? When specifically considering adolescent gossip, the main social standing of anyone who gossips or listens to gossip are high and middle ranking in the social structure. Okay. So you already have to be kind of a higher rank. Scientists also discovered that whenever someone challenged a piece of gossip.
That first part, if you want to drive gossip, you have to hold social power.
Yep.
And then by driving gossip, you reinforce your own social power. Which is why those with low social power can say whatever they want. No one really cares. And then they go, oh, I never thought anyone really noticed me. And that coming of age movie that we all love.
Yes. Literally. So scientists discover, specifically in adolescent gossip still, whenever a challenge occurred to a piece of gossip, it most often happened if the person challenging, aka the listener, was of a higher social standing than the person who gave the initial gossip.
Okay.
Which I think was pretty interesting that they were able to like, not quantitative, but like qualitatively identify that. So I don't know what this bullet point is, so we're just going to all read this together. Yeah. I said...
When we do a 48-hour episode turnaround?
Yeah. I say, okay, this is funny, the article talks about... Anyway, the article talks about how there is a need for sociology to study the content of relaxed, informal conversations, and then cites one of the few studies to do so that happened in 1922. So remember, this is a long time ago. Before I get into this, they were able to identify, now I remember, the differences in types of, or conversation topics based on the genders involved in the conversation.
Okay, so men identifying people gossip about this, women identifying people gossip about that.
And then if men identifying talk to women identifying, and also this is 1922, so they weren't nice about this. So if men are talking to men, the top 3 in this order: number 1, job related. Yeah, that makes sense. 2, sports/leisure. Number 3, behavior of other men.
Yeah. So as a person who has now been on 2 Bachelor, three 3 bachelor trips, and they've gotten progressively straighter. Jacobs, we were a voting majority. I mean plurality. Like 40% of us
There's a good number of you.
Gays on Jacobs. And then it just kind of worked its way until I met Griffin's.
Yeah, and you're like the only one.
I felt truly like an anthropologist. Like I was like, I should be in gray khaki right now. Like watching
you should have like a fishing hat.
Watching the 13 of you interact right now is absolutely bonkers to me. And of course, you're not going to be able to make it into this club because you got a double 40 of Twisted Tea in your hand right now that you walk down a public sidewalk with. So yeah, I bet A, you're not feeling good, and B, they're not letting you in. Exactly. We'll see you in 2 days. Part of me was like, hey, what is going on? How did no one help you? How did no one replace that with a gin and tonic? Because what you really got to monitor is sugar intake on a night like that.
Because there wasn't enough gossip about them.
Exactly. We haven't all gossiped about how it makes us feel. Exactly.
It's true.
So what that was, it was jobs, sports/leisure, and behavior of other men. The last thing I'll say about that whole experience. And we actually relived this joke with Griffin over New Year's.
Yes.
You know, I've already joked with Griffin about that dynamic with his friends or whatever. Yeah. And so when Lydia was around, I go, listen, last time our college group did a summer trip together, even though we'd already texted about it and got off the phone, we were like, random name, Mary, how are you? How are you handling your parents' divorce? Like just immediately to the news. Because that's what the gals do. Right. And then Taylor leans forward and she goes, sometimes I have to give Griffin questions before he hangs out with his friends for information that I want to know, and it won't even occur to him to ask. That's actually so smart on Taylor's part, because a number of times I asked She's a smart lady. I'm like, so how is so-and-so doing with that? And he was like, I don't know. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't know? You came back from the last time you hung out and told me about this. Why am I the one that's curious? Exactly. Oh my God, it's ridiculous. Okay, so that's male to male conversation. Female to female conversation, the top 3 are. Can you guess what number 1 is? This is 1922. Other women? Men. Oh, interesting. Okay. Women in 1922 were all failing the Bechdel test, it sounds like. That was a good reference. Almost every single one, it sounds like. Okay, number 2, clothing. Number 3, behavior of other women. Interesting. I feel like clothing has dropped a little bit. I think clothing and men both have dropped a little bit. Yeah. I don't know what the order would be now or if it would be completely different things, but a lot of the women in my life romantically talk about other women. Like, I think that has really driven up those numbers a little bit. Get those numbers up. And then I think economic security concerns. Bodily autonomy. Exactly. Yeah, we're getting there. Supreme Court justices. Yes. And then hottest bodega in town. That's real. That's real. Okay. In mixed, and this is now a quote, in mixed male to female dyads, the patterns were quite similar, although in such scenarios, men tended to speak more about themselves than about other men. Yeah. And I'll never be back. That was the reaction I had reading that. I was like, in 1922, they were like, what are you doing? Well, I can say something mean in return. I imagine you were cackling at me at like 2 o'clock in the morning. iPad screen illuminating your face. Typing away on your little iPad. I wasn't even thinking of you. I was thinking of every straight man I've ever interacted with. It just feels deeply like you leaning over during Funny Girl and me being like, don't look at me right now. Okay. It's the line that we keep referencing is from Funny Girl where they go, person can get lonely being that busy. And then Maia just owl turned 175 degrees my direction. The stage was in the opposite direction that Grant was sitting from me. Continue. Okay. I felt the need. Okay. So since this study, there has been many other scientific articles or academic journal entries about the need for updated systematic research. So now we're going to talk about some of the more recent studies. They're still pretty limited, but they're out there. In 2017, a study by Eckhouse and Beck-Hader focuses on a similar topic as the 1922 one, aka gender-based differences in gossiping habits. Quantitatively, men and women spend approximately the same amount of time gossiping. Yeah, I fully believe that. Which is like men... And it's 85% of our time. Because the men are like, no, we don't gossip. And it's like, girl, it's everything that you're talking about that isn't like a productive conversation. Right. It's everything. Women's gossip, however, tended to be more positive than men's. I could see that. Yeah. So, but that doesn't answer why. I have actually never actually think I've seen one straight man compliment another straight man
I like
on
how
anything
hard
he's worked on.
was to get out of your throat. You're like,
well, as I was
straight.
saying it, too, I was like aligning the world together. I was like, well, it's just, I don't like. Do we include the gays? Or where we, we're a pretty vicious bunch.
Yeah.
But I don't think I've like.
No, they're not like, I like the way his beard's growing in lately. You
There's
know,
never been like the sweater he was wearing yesterday was great, and I say that to you guys all
the time. Yeah. So none of this answers why we gossip. According to Michelle Gelfand, a professor of organizational behavior at Stanford Graduate School of Business, here's a quote. Quote, you can go back to the history and see that it was prevalent in Mesopotamia and Greece. Anthropologists talk about it being at the center of life in hunter-gatherer societies. It is unclear why gossiping, which requires considerable time and energy on a person's part, as well as giving away potentially very valuable information, evolved as an adaptive strategy at all. What's in it for the gossipers? She then continues, gossip is helpful because it disseminates information about people's reputation, and that can help recipients of this information connect with more cooperative people. As more people are thinking about others' reputations, they're then getting concerned about their own reputations too, and they don't want to be the subject of future gossip, so that deters them from acting selfishly. So like the whole idea of gossip really like constructs your society around you.
We all agree to it, and then it keeps you like in line a little bit.
Yeah. While common perception of gossip is that it's disparaging or undermines social cohesion, that's actually not entirely accurate. In a study by Michelle, it shows that it helps build cooperation in societies, but only when that gossip is accurate. Quote, individuals acted more cooperatively if they knew that the information about their behavior was being shared with others. In turn, they behaved less selfishly around known gossipers, which then gives gossipers an evolutionary advantage.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because there's a couple of people, and we all have them at work,
Yeah.
where you're like, I can't share what I'm going to say
Yeah.
because so-and-so's in the room, and everyone will know, so I'll just text you later. And then also, not to pull out like my third Brene Brown reference of this episode already, but early in one of her, I think it's her Netflix special, she talks a little bit about how people love to say like, I don't care what anyone thinks about me. And she goes,
Yeah, you do.
yes, you do. Like, of course, like you have not
There's no way for
broken
you
that
not
evolutionary
to.
hack, right? Like the independence you're looking for is to be okay with what they're saying about you. That when they say those things, they're like, yeah, and that aligns with like what I want to be doing. It's like to no longer view it as a criticism. But of course, if people are saying things that hurt your feelings, you're gonna care about that. Yeah, like that's
it's also
primal.
There's a difference between not caring what people think about you and not caring what certain people think about you.
Or not caring around like their reputation around like certain elements of it, right?
Yeah.
Like
like, oh, you can say whatever you want about this. I don't care.
both of our lives are different than the lives of our parents, right? And I think we're both thrilled with that,
Oh my
right?
God,
So that kind of criticism doesn't faze us. Yeah.
Exactly. So, additionally, it's been shown to bring the gossiper and listener closer together, creating a very valuable social bond. Oftentimes as well, it increases the listener's liking of the gossiper, the listener's liking of the gossiper. Because they feel kind of like in the circle, you know? Obviously, this is still highly dependent on the subject matter, the motive of the gossiper, and the trustworthiness of all parties involved. There's one particular study in Scientific American that concluded that gossipers with a rivalry or conflict with the target are more likely to pass on altered, self-serving, or outright incorrect information.
Okay.
So if someone's gossiping and you like know, hey, Sarah doesn't like Micah or something like that, you should be less likely to trust what Sarah's going to say about Micah. But this can go both ways.
So hater.
Yeah.
Hater title.
But it can go both ways. Scientific American also concluded, or the journal in Scientific American also concluded, that if the gossiper is friends with the target, they are more likely to not pass on any negative information, and they're more likely to pass on something that's positive but false.
So a lie.
Yeah. A lie, but a good one.
I don't think she's messy.
Yeah, literally.
Girl, you better be cleaning up right now.
Yeah, literally. So that same article, the Scientific American study also shows that people tend to be very good at sizing up the intentions of gossipers, probably due to this whole like social evolution. We're good at sizing up the intention of gossipers and listeners, of gossip. and listeners will gauge whether or not to believe it based on if they believe the gossiper is doing it for the gossiper's benefit or the listener's benefit. So if you're saying something to someone like, hey, don't go out alone with Mark because I've had a lot of friends that have had really negative experiences with Mark, the listener is probably going to be like, oh my God, thank you so much.
Right.
But if you're like, Mark's a piece of shit because he ate my lunch yesterday, it's like...
Well, it's also
okay.
it's like when you say the phrase, not to gossip, or like, I'm just worried about her, or like, bless her heart. Like, we can still see through that even if you have crafted the message in what your mind is a way of
it's who you are as a person outside of what you're saying.
Right. Exactly.
So it's really fascinating.
I love this little bit of science.
Right?
Maia's Science Corner. Hark, a Maia sings.
Hark the herald angels sing.
Oh, I have
Yeah.
something to tell you during the break.
Okay, cool. We have 2 more little sections before we can take a break. But
no worries. No,
I know.
rush.
I'm just letting you know.
Thanks, babes.
So gossip can be very beneficial. This is what Grant was getting to about what his student had researched. Grant, Jesus Christ, I can't read.
Hi.
Gossip can be very beneficial, specifically for marginalized individuals or new members of a group. The examples they gave in this study are that if you hear gossip at work that someone is leaving their job, that could motivate you to work harder to be up for the promotion. Or if you're, for example, a queer person, gossip can help you inform your decisions on how you present and who you align or ally with in your general group based off of what other people are telling you, especially like people that identify similarly to you. Obviously, gossip does not always have a positive impact, but it's important to remember that it's not inherently evil to gossip.
Right.
So an example of negative use of gossip, there's a study done in 2016 at a historically white South African university, and they found that gossip about Black employees undermined the Black employees' work performance and morale. So that's an example of it working negatively.
Intentionally vicious.
Yes. Yeah. A positive example, between 2015 and 2020, sociologists interviewed residents of Riace, a town in Italy that hosted lots of refugees and migrants for more than 20 years. And they found out that most of the local gossip occurred between people of different ethnic groups, and it actually promoted a strong community relationships between all of those new groups.
Group A, Group B was talking to each other and like share like, well, you don't know. And there's an element to that too, I'm sure, where it's like, well, I can tell them they're not part of this. So like it's harmless for me to tell them. And then like you're bringing everyone together. That's fun.
I know, right? It's cool. So even being the subject of gossip is not inherently negative. It might feel inherently negative, but like in the grand and like a much wider, higher level picture, it is not
sociologically proven.
Oh my God. What he said. So positive gossip obviously is good at least in my opinion. Like if it comes back to you, you're like, oh yeah, people are talking about me. Like, oh my God. But negative gossip, if truthful, can help repair problematic behavior. For example, if you complain about a coworker who's always late, but then another coworker is like, well, what you don't know is that Mark is going through a really hard divorce, or like Mark has been having some really rough health issues lately. Sure. You as a person are less likely to view them negatively, and you may even be more motivated to treat them more positively.
More kindness. Yeah.
Exactly. Stuff like that.
Interesting.
I also had this realization when we were talking. I feel like it's probably a lot more likely that men behave like the shitty people that they do sometimes because there's not as much gossip about
and forcing them around. Yeah.
And women, there's so much gossip forcing you around.
When I am having those arguments in the shower and my native body wash is there, it reminds me, this isn't the kind version that you want to be. And I'm like, you're so right. Thank you for talking me through this with me. You're right. I don't know where they come from.
Native body wash would be the one to do that too.
Yeah, it would. Also, my parents, I brought home my native body wash for Thanksgiving because I was like, I don't want to get dried out. And Mom was like, well, just let me take a picture of it real quick. And I came back and she had bought 3 bottles, one for every single shower.
That's so funny.
I don't know how many showers she thought I was taking a day or if I was going to go on a shower tour of the home. But if for any moment I needed to run into the nearest shower and shower, it'd be native body wash. And that was so sweet. It's so sweet that I completely ignored the fact that she got the wrong scent.
Aw,
I'm a
Teresa.
vanilla and coconut girl. I don't want citrus.
Oh.
And that's when you go back home and you resort back to like your 14-year-old self. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways.
You're like, God, Mom, you just don't get me.
Exactly. And she's stacked the fridge with every dip and snack you've ever eaten in 30 years.
And still has a kombucha you didn't finish from last year.
Well, should we throw it away? Or, I mean, it looks like it's about to explode, but do you want to finish it?
I think something's growing in there. Is that
Exactly.
normal?
Gut biomes.
Yeah. Yes. So the next section is going to really introduce us to the topic that Grant teased out earlier.
Okay.
In 1984, there's a 14-year-old girl named Julia. Julia is spending the summer. Her full name is Julia Quinn. I'm going to call her Julia. Julia was spending the summer with her dad in Southern California. Her parents are divorced. I think Mom lived, I want to say East Coast, but I could be wrong. Dad lives in like Los Angeles. Like Grant and I, Julia spends a lot of her time reading. Specifically reading the Sweet Dreams series, which was a teen romance series.
And also now a Beyonce song.
Exactly. Sweet dream. That's not Beyonce, but still.
No,
Sweet
you're
dreams
right.
are made of these.
Or a beautiful nightmare. Probably copyright.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, did you see the episode that you played your Cher song on?
No.
Remember? Do you remember doing that?
Yeah, sure. I do.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't believe
Yes,
you
I
at
do.
all.
Oh, her Christmas
Yeah, the
song.
Christmas
I was
song.
like, no, I have no idea.
We got
okay,
an email from YouTube that was like, "You are sharing you're sharing all of your proceeds for this episode with Cher," and I was like, "I'm not mad.
Hell yeah.
I'm not
Wait,
mad."
So for 2 truths and a lie, I can say I have been in one business partnership with Cher.
Or at least her production group.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. Probably called Cher
Yeah.
Productions. Not a lie.
True.
Sharing our proceeds with Cher.
I know. I was like, I can't even be mad about that. They were like, "Here's what you can do to dispute this." And I was like, I don't want to
No,
dispute
I don't want to
it.
do that. I want that to stay.
I want her to receive the $2
Correct,
for this
correct.
video. So at some point, she's reading these books. She's like flying through this book
okay.
series. At some point, her dad is like, "What are you reading?"
Right.
And
It's a good dad right there.
yeah, what are you
A
reading?
little late, but okay.
Yeah. And so, not being one to judge a book by its cover, he picked one up. And this is now a direct quote from Julia. He was not impressed.
Oh.
But to his credit, he took a look at a second novel before making a judgment. He was still not impressed.
With what specifically? The writing or the content?
Yes.
Okay. Good.
Correct.
Good.
Correct.
And that man's name was George R.R. Martin.
There should be swords.
Exactly. Dragons, but like not for several books.
Yeah. Yes. You have to wait. You'll think there might be dragons.
And then backload dragons
Yeah.
with the next series.
Yes. So that's so funny. So when he then questions her on it, Julia launches into a quote well-rehearsed speech about the importance of reading for pleasure.
This is us right now.
Yeah,
this
queen,
is us.
Queen. Her dad was like, "Yeah, sure,
Sure.
absolutely,
Yeah,
I should."
yeah.
But like, can you maybe like read some things along with Sweet Dreams? Like, does it have to be all Sweet
I cannot.
Dreams?
Your request has been processed and it has unfortunately been denied. I
Yeah.
cannot. I'm sorry.
Then this is a quote from the dad. Quote, "Give me one good reason why you should read these books," he said. "Just one thing that you have learned or that has made you think." Like, think in italics. She could not come up with a convincing argument.
She practiced the one speech
Yeah,
and she
she
thought
was
that'd
like,
be
"Oh,
good.
God, you had more questions?
Plans like a man.
Yeah. And then this is a quote from Julia. Quote, "But I'm nothing if not scrappy. So I told him that I was increasing my vocabulary. He nodded. He could get down with this. So he asked, 'Can you show me a word you've learned?' I could not." Teen romances of the 1980s had many good features, but interesting verbiage was not one of them. But she really doesn't want to quit reading Sweet Dreams. So what does she do? She like comes up, she's scrappy, so she comes up with another argument. She then says, quote, "I was going to write a teen romance novel, and it
Yep.
would be foolish of me to do so without a full understanding of the genre."
I kind of love that instead of just reading literally one other book,
Yeah.
she was like, "I'm a published author." It's been my lifelong dream.
She's 14.
And you know, kids love going 0 to 1,000,000 in a second.
Million. And then this is now a quote too. Quote, "That stopped him in his tracks. He was impressed. I was impressed."
This dad's easily impressed.
This dad just wants to support his daughter, but is like, can we add some like diversity to your reading
Some
material?
vegetables in this
literally. Okay, he was impressed. I was impressed. It was not easy to gain the upper hand in a debate with my father. It still isn't.
True.
Okay, he said. And that night he sat me down in front of his computer.
It's like journaling, but so much worse.
I don't
there's
think
zero assumption of privacy around it.
I don't think well, actually something in the article said like she had gotten through a book and it was like a mystery or something, and he read it and she was like furious at him for reading it, but he was like, how does it end? Like, I need to know how it ends.
Hilarious.
And she was like, I don't know. And he was like, how do you not know? She was like, it'll come to me. So by 1999, we are now like
15 years after
15
that
years
initial
later,
conversation.
Julia is writing the first book of what she's hoping will be a trilogy. And while writing some dialogue between two of the characters, she realizes that it doesn't make sense for them to have a discussion about things that they, as characters, would already know. So it's a discussion between a mother and a daughter, and it's like, but father died. And it's like, yes, we know. Like, why are you saying that?
Right.
And so how does she get that information to the reader without info dumping on them? If you've ever read like a mediocre novel, you've probably experienced a chapter where it's just like, and here in this
world
city,
building and context.
and it's just like, holy shit. So here is her quote: "If someone, perhaps a gossip columnist, were to gossip about them, it would make perfect sense that the basic facts of the clan would be laid out in a single tidy paragraph. And so Lady Whistledown was born."
Whoa. So I have one question before the break.
Yeah.
Why do we need to know about Mrs. Manley?
You'll find out.
I love it. We'll be back after the
We'll
break.
be back. Goodbye.
What a wonderful little cheese break we just had. This is fun.
It's
We had a lot of
wild.
fun.
I just found out Grant has a superpower of seeing silver linings. It's shocking.
Not news to them at all because they don't know what I just said.
Every time
but
it's shocking to me.
You. The quote, "It's always darkest just before the light." In my mind, I'm always like, is it that dark?
There's already light. There's a street lamp
it's
right there.
Not even dark.
Yeah. It's a full moon.
Look at the stars. Yeah. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
I have my cell phone right here.
No, but for reals, yes.
It's
Gosh.
what it must be like to have serotonin.
Well,
all
also,
the time.
please keep in mind that this episode is being recorded after I got an hour-long workout in today after work.
And got endorphins,
Yeah,
and now you're like, your brain is working
I'm
at a...
already pretty miserably happy, but especially kind of amped up right now.
Anyway.
We're back. We're back.
Fully dissociated.
We might have never left, but if we did, we're back.
We definitely left at some point. Well, at least for 5 seconds for them.
Checking if we have a snow day. I know they're really curious. And the answer is nothing posted yet. Starts at 11 tonight. The snow. Anyways.
Interesting. I think it has to be really bad for them to call it before the snow even starts. Right? I think so.
Anywho's.
Anywho,
Sorry, I'm like, oh, what? I'm calling someone. Phone is down. Phone is down.
So I just laid out that how Julia Quinn, author of The Duke and I, aka which is episode 1,
Her name's Julia Quinn, and she's the author of The Duke and I,
which is season 1 of Bridgerton. So she's the author of all of the Bridgerton books.
I'm embarrassed because as soon as you said the word Julie, I'm sure Julie Quinn, I'm sure they all immediately figured it out. And I was like, yeah, what happened? Jules, what's going on with our girl Jules?
I knew that would be your response.
Okay.
I banked on that.
I solved this topic earlier and then forgot.
And it might be cut. Like, they might not know that you solved
so true.
it. I'll decide. It'll be a game time decision.
At one point, there was audios of me being like, oh, is this, I can say it now. I was about to go blank.
Yeah, Lady Whistledown.
Is this Lady Whistledown like 8 minutes in? And Maya just goes, I was like, sorry.
I so carefully crafted this episode. Anyway, I'm going to cut it. I'm going to cut it for them.
Good.
So they have the special moment I planned.
Good. Please don't let me ruin anyone else's good time.
Okay. So, dear reader, welcome to part 2 of Rumor Has It. Dearest Reader.
Nice.
Yeah.
Part 2, still part of part 2, but part 2 of the part 2.
Part 2 of Rumor Has It.
Right.
The episode.
And then this is the second part of part 2.
The name is going to... You're ridiculous. I hate you. How do you have silver linings and then like win arguments that aren't even arguments?
That is
like,
still to this day, for all of the beautiful things you have said to me, that how did you win that social conversation? You aren't even in the right resonates deeply with me.
I think about that a lot. I want you to know. I don't even remember what we were talking about. I remember saying that though.
I'm elusive.
Yeah.
It freaks the kids out because they will come in with the surety that they are right.
Yeah.
And sometimes they are. And it's like, whoa, can't catch me. Whoa, whoa, feel bad. Anyways, talk to me about Lady Whistledown.
Lady Whistledown was not directly inspired by anyone.
Okay.
As far as I could tell.
Even Mrs. Manley.
Sure.
Great.
Yeah. But perhaps the scandal sheets were inspired by the 1700s.
Okay.
Because in the 1700s, there was a big boom in people utilizing their right to free press. Do you know why?
In the 1700s?
It happens,
because of the invention of the printing press?
No, because of the
That's probably earlier.
1662 Licensing Act that then got abolished in 1695.
I always forget about the Licensing Act. It's like tea tax, stamp tax. Forget about the
out
licensing.
of the studio. I swear to God. I'm not
just
even
enough
turning
to
your mic
trigger
off. I'm just sending you out.
Someone took AP US history a decade ago, and I managed to get just enough words in there to trigger a response.
Anyway,
I'm stone cold sober
I'm
right
talking to
now.
you right now. I'm only talking to you, the camera. If you're on audio, I'm looking only at the camera. Grant's not here. Ignore him. So in 1662, there was a licensing act, and in 1695, it was abolished. And so because of that, the newspaper industry was booming because there was decreased limitations on the press. So kind of everyone was like, I could have a podcast.
It's a lot more work than you think it is.
Sure
It's a joy
is.
of work, though.
Yeah. By 1712, there were 20 different newspapers in London alone.
Okay.
So, how do you guarantee that your paper will grab the attention of the people? How would you do it?
Lie.
Celebrity gossip,
Yeah.
celebrity drama.
We said the same thing.
I'm so done with you right now. I am like 4 bullet points into this section. So newspapers like Town and Country began to include tete-a-tete reports on crime, infidelity, and gossip about royalty. And so those types of articles were doing so well.
I love the idea of these newspapers not originally reporting crime, and now they're like, oh, better do that.
Well, I think more like they were reporting on like petty crime and stuff.
Sure.
Yeah. Specifically in London, which was the birthplace of these types of articles are doing really well. Specifically in London, which was the birthplace of these scandal sheets, which are dedicated to spreading society gossip. Some of the more popular 1700 scandal sheets included the Flying Post, the British Apollo, the Observer, and the Tattler. All of these were written by men and aimed, like their target audience was men and women, but they're written by men. So they all discussed everything that you might think. Affairs, they reported on the marriage mart, petty crimes, etc., but also things like the best and worst dressed, the most under and overdressed, women who tried too hard to look and act younger than they are. Anyway.
I'm here for it. I want to read all of it. I'm the exact target market for that.
It's important to note also that what I'm talking about, happened in the 1700s, the early 1700s, which is about 100 years before Bridgerton is set.
Okay.
So that's another disconnect right there. This is a clipping from the specific scandal sheet that we're going to talk more about.
Mrs. Tawny, alias Tawdry, is desired not to be so fantastically whimsical in her dress. Nothing is more disagreeable and ridiculous than to see a woman of her years affect the gay, youthful air of their daughters. Gay.
Gay again.
And that's a sticker. And by the by, actually written by the by, hilarious, and I love it.
Yeah.
And by the by, she is reminded that if she will be so preposterously gaudy and flaunting, that if there were that if there was little more economy observed in her dress, she would not be altogether the subject of so much laughter. So she's dressing like her daughters cheaply.
Cheaply and also like extravagantly, like gaudy.
Hilarious.
Yeah. They're like, can you use
by the by
tone it down a little bit?
I know I struggled there towards the end, but are you having me reading these sections because you don't want to say some of these words?
No.
Okay, you just wanted to include me?
I like it when you get excited about reading things.
Thank you. And I like legitimately do.
I know. I know. So we're going to specifically talk for a second about the Tattler. The Tattler was started in early 1709, and it was signed off by a man named Isaac Bickerstaff. That, of course, is a pseudonym. His real name was Richard Steele. It was published multiple times a week. Can you imagine? The way I had to read this multiple times, I was like, multiple times.
Multiple times a week. So like once a day.
Yeah.
Like traditional newspapers.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think this one was published Tuesday, Thursday, and maybe once on the weekend. I'm not sure. So Isaac, aka Richard, not only reported on scandal, but many different things amongst the
How
various
much
sections.
gossip is he finding, though, to be able to talk about it 2 to 3 times a week, though?
He
or is
has
it just like a
multiple
paragraph
sections.
or 2?
No. So one of them that I
so
read.
So much content.
Someone that read the scandal sheet that I have yet to introduce that we're going to talk about said that it read like Nikki Glaser hosting the Golden Globes. Like there's there's like a couple paragraphs of like an opening act, essentially like a stand-up comedian. And then some of these, like the Tattler, would have other sections.
Okay.
And then like funny quips and stuff like that.
And then weather and sports.
Exactly. And now to weather and sports. Okay, so the Tattler specifically had different sections of the paper. They had foreign and domestic news in the St. James's Coffee House. They had poetry in Will's Coffee House. They had scandal, aka accounts of gallantry, pleasure, and entertainment in the White's Chocolate House.
Gallantry, pleasure, and entertainment.
Yep.
And what do you mean by in the White's Chocolate House?
That's like the name of the section.
Oh, so they're like, and in this physical shop that doesn't exist, gossip.
Like Grant's Sports.
Okay.
I don't know. Couldn't tell you.
They have clearly too much time on their hands because they haven't shortened any title down in this entire episode so far.
Exactly. So Isaac hid the identities of his subjects using pseudonyms. Part of the fun of reading these columns was speculating who was the true identity behind the names for as long as they were referenced in the articles. So like if someone's been referenced for a couple weeks, it's like, well, who do you think this so-and-so is? And so this is from an article published on April 21st, 1709. And this one is from the Tattler.
Okay. Do but observe Clarissa the next time you see her, and you will find, when her eyes have made their soft tour around the company, she makes no stay on him they say she is to marry, but rests 2 seconds of a minute on Will Dare, who neither looks nor thinks on her, or any woman else. So Clarissa has a crush on a gay dude.
Man, but she's also betrothed to someone who she is not interested in.
Wow, that is so middle school. That is so deeply guttural, relatable.
the way I would eat this up if this was something I was reading every day. Anyway,
I mean, I loved that gossip right there, and I have no idea who
Clarissa or Will Dare. Yeah. So, what are we really missing, Grant? Who loves gossip
more of it.
the most?
I think we need more of it is what we're missing. It's just more. Take me to John's White Chocolate House or whatever, which is a crazy first time in the universe that sentence has ever been said.
Well, apparently back in this day, they had like coffee shops and chocolate houses, like coffee houses and chocolate houses, which is wild. And it seemed like men more often congregated at the coffee shops.
And now all we have is coffee shops and hookah bars.
And women congregated more often at the chocolate bars, which is nuts. Okay, so we need a sheet whose target audience is just women. Sure. Like who's really at home all day,
who's looking out
minding
for Clarissa.
The kids. Yeah, who's looking out for Clarissa. So enter
Lady Whistledown.
Mrs. Crackenthorpe.
Okay. Do we maybe already know Mrs. Crackenthorpe?
We still don't know who Miss Crackenthorpe is.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right.
Mrs. Crackenthorpe's first issue so the article that we were just talking about was the Tattler. She releases The Female Tattler.
Good, excellent.
And it went to press.
A comedy.
Yeah. It went to press on July 8th, 1709, and it is not published by Isaac Bickerstaff. Like, that is confirmed. Mrs. Crackenthorpe begins her first publication with, quote, "I hope Isaac Bickerstaff, Esquire, will not think I invade his property by undertaking a paper of this kind, since tattling was ever, like, assigned particular to our sex." Or
what a long-form version of Dear Gentle Reader.
Yeah. Yes. So Mrs. Crackenthorpe, she then...
You're doing such a good job with this episode. Rumor has it. This is so fun so far.
Right? When you said rumor has it, I was like, shut up.
I was like, yeah, that one.
I was like, if you choose the fat lady sings, I swear to God. Okay. So she then gives her mission statement of sorts in the paper, which she wants her paper to be more of an informative device, but still gossip, So she says, quote, "When we daily hear of unaccountable whims and extravagant follies committed by the better sort, we must expect those of inferior classes will imitate them in their habits of mind as well as body, and the only way to correct great men's foibles is handsomely to ridicule them. A seasonable banter has often had a reclaiming effect." So she's essentially saying, like, the upper class has to be held accountable for their actions, or else everyone else is going to follow suit.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So in one of her earlier publications, she says that she had been told by a well-meaning lord that, quote, "nobody can be offended at what a lady writes."
Oh, good.
And she was like, "Bitch, bet."
You're like, I'm viciously mean.
Yeah,
I was not allowed to say it out loud.
Let me at them.
Oh, you're right, because I did not fully learn English as well.
Yeah.
You're right.
Part of me wants to believe that she heard this and was like, okay, fine. Like, I know someone who can publish this.
Men would literally challenge women, then view them as equals.
Literally. Okay. And also, she would only publish The Female Tattler on the days that The Tattler was not coming out. So The Tattler, I think, published Tuesday, Thursday, and then maybe on a weekend. So she would publish Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Jeez.
Can you imagine?
No.
I got hives thinking about that.
That's so much content.
That's so much content.
What, Wednesday, Thursday, or Wednesday, Friday? So she does
Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Yeah, okay.
That's crazy.
That Wednesday, Friday turnaround has to be really tough because you collect some gossip on Monday and can kind of piddle some of it into Wednesday.
Yeah.
But then that Wednesday, Friday, like, you had to be getting new gossip as you were writing the episode. Yeah, it's tough.
That's crazy. So she hid her subjects' identities and her own behind witty pseudonyms. And the fact that she was so carefully hiding her own identity was also a source of scandal. Because, I mean, people kind of knew that The Tattler was written by Isaac Bickerstaff, who was actually Richard Steele. And this one was like, who is Miss Crackenthorpe? So this is a different... Yeah, so the fact that she hid the identities of her subjects was a difference from Lady Whistledown. But it's also the norm at the time for all of these scandal sheets. The nicknames usually, however, made the true identity of the person pretty obvious.
Pretty
if
clear,
you kind of knew who they were. Like, if I were to write something about Grant, I would call him, like, Sweater Man, like...
The Baldy.
Yeah, like stuff like that. So unlike Mrs. Whistledown, though, she did not solely focus on the love lives of the season's debutantes or those on the marriage mart. Miss Crackenthorpe was known to never back down once she had a piece of gossip between her teeth. She was known for her satirically scathing and sharp observations, also for her innuendo-laden feminine wit.
Absolutely.
Yeah. This is the biggest commonality between Mrs. Crackenthorpe and Lady Whistledown. But she didn't always make up her own names. A lot of the times, I'd forgot that I wrote this, parentheses, we can't all be originally funny all the time like Grant.
Thank you. It's a lot of pressure.
I know. So she would actually borrow the names of characters from pop culture, like popular plays or like popular novels.
Tiny Tim over here.
Literally. So she would borrow names from characters of popular culture of the time who suited the odious dispositions, that is a direct quote, of the people involved. One of which, for example, was Lady Politic Woodby. That character, I know, that's an insane name, but that character is from a play by Ben Jonson. The play is called Volpone, and I did a little look up into this play. Lady Woodby is the wife of Sir Politic, and is given a lot of freedom, but she's extremely talkative and well-educated, but she always talks about her staff, how her staff is not doing a good enough job, and most of the men in the play find her annoying. So she is known for the character is known for their over-the-top behavior and lack of genuine understanding. Quote, she is essentially a caricature of a social climber with a penchant for the overly dramatic pronouncements. Cue Laszlo from What We Do in the Shadows. God, I was cooking when I wrote these notes. I don't remember that. This was like last week.
I really should have revisited these notes.
But this is funny, not sad.
Yeah.
New York City. So the lady who this pseudonym was for was a well-known society hypochondriac. And so this kind of identity fit her really well. Mrs. Crackenthorpe claimed her column was morally educational. She felt a duty to report the, quote, unaccountable whims and extravagant follies of the higher classes. Oh, and that's a quote I already read, so I was going to make you read it, but it's gone. Oh, yeah, okay. She said, yeah. Girl, just say you like the tea. Like, you don't need to hide behind a moral high ground. Anyway.
You're like, oh, I wrote a lot of this stuff about how she was like, and like, it's good that I share this information, but it's like, yeah, I mean, everyone's already sharing it. You're just making a buck off of it.
We already like it.
Yeah, 100%.
So it's fine. So similar to the first season of Bridgerton, no one knows who Miss Crackenthorpe is still to this day.
Okay.
There's two main theories. One is that some believe that she was a man named Thomas Baker, who was a who was a lawyer and
did he hang out with Baudelaire a lot? Sorry,
probably. Who was a lawyer and minor dramatist. He wrote several comic plays before disappearing from the social scene.
Then how's he getting all the gossip?
I don't know.
Okay, sorry. I'm like fully detective hats on. I'm like Scooby-Dooing this.
You're like, but how?
We can solve it right now in this room with just the information you read to me.
Yeah, sure. So this accusation came from a man named Dr. Nathan Drake, who reportedly had only seen a few editions of the Female Tattler, and this was just perpetrated through various media outlets without any fact-checking or quotes until eventually it was reported in the census of British newspapers and periodicals, 1620 to 1800. So basically one guy was like, I think it's this guy, and he had actually only read like 2 copies, and then everyone was like, it's that guy.
Cool, makes sense. Great.
Yeah.
Thanks for solving that for us. And her name's Mrs. Kraken. What is it?
Crackenthorpe.
Crackenthorpe. I did not have any right to be that close.
The other
Crackenthorpe?
The other name for the episode that I played with was Get Kraken.
Oh, absolutely. Wait, what's the actual?
Well, the other one that I thought of was Dearest Reader. Those are the two. So we can vote. We can vote at the end. Vote on your phones now.
I think Dearest Reader would be great, but I also think it's going to cause some panic from people who think like, oh my God, did they just quit the podcast?
Yes.
But that it's 3 hours long.
Yeah.
Okay.
That seems fine.
Dearest Reader. I like Dearest Reader.
Do both. The second theory is that she was an author, playwright, and political pamphleteer named Delarivier Manley.
Mm-hmm.
She was the author of a scandalous political novel titled The New Atlantis. 2 volumes were published in 1709, so she did publish like a sequel to it.
Right.
The same year, Mrs. Crackenthorpe began publishing. Some of the themes in the book are similar to those in The Female Tattler. Delia's The New Atlantis discredited so many political figures of the time to the point that Delia was arrested, as we talked about. Around the time of Delia's arrest, Miss Crackenthorpe resigned.
Oh, interesting.
After 51 editions.
Ooh.
The case against Delia was dropped.
And they were like...
Yeah.
And they were like, and Mrs. Manley keeps gambling, so like we know she needs some money coming in.
But the case against Delia was dropped. She is released, but Miss Crackenthorpe never returned to the paper. It did continue for 58 more editions after that, but it was never as successful as it was when Mrs. Crackenthorpe was writing.
So the lady, the female, what was it? The Female Tattler.
The Female Tattler.
Finds a different author, but doesn't get Miss Crackenthorpe back at it. Miss Crackenthorpe never cracks it open again.
Exactly.
She doesn't crack that case right open.
Exactly. You get it.
She put a Thorpe in her mouth.
Nope. You went too far.
I know. I know I did.
So considering whether Miss Crackenthorpe was a woman or man, this is the article that I was reading, the one that I had printed out while we were at the debate tournament, that I had to like ask Chat GPT to like decode some sentences because I was like, these words in this order don't make sense.
Maia's like, don't come over here.
Yeah.
And here is between two bleachers that have been pushed into the wall because we're
don't look at me!
in a gymnasium. And I was like, all right, girl.
At one point,
someone's getting Starbucks. Let us know if you want any.
At one point, you had your laptop open and I just had this paper that I was like reading off of, and you closed your laptop and I like pushed my laptop in the way because I was like, don't look at me.
And I wouldn't be like, oh, Maia, you are the 64th person I am thinking about on this trip right now.
I wasn't going to play it. You're sneaky. You're a sneaky little guy.
I am a little bit.
I know. So I wasn't
going
to. You can say whatever you want. I don't trust you. So anyway.
And that's healthy.
Yeah, sure. So this article was written by Paul Bunyan Anderson, an academic who published several entries into several academic journals in the 1930s regarding Mrs. Crackenthorpe and Mrs. Manley and Thomas Baker and everything that happened. And he makes a few arguments that that Mrs. Crackenthorpe, like regardless of the argument of who she might be, was most likely a woman. So this is the quote. Mrs. Crackenthorpe's robust feminism was eminently like Mrs. Manley's, a feminism able to give and take intellectual blows in a man's world. Not overproud of its sex, it is envious of a man's strength and education, even half regretful that fortune had not made it masculine. Like Mrs. Manley, who had set the tone for her autobiography, but by having Sir Charles Lovemore declare that he had often heard her say, quote, if she had been born a man, she had been without fault. Mrs. Crackenthorpe thinks in masculine terms to justify her acts. She selects a masculine analogy to explain her change of printers. We're going to talk about this in a second. She changes printers at some point, and it's very dramatic. And when she's explaining this, she says she changed printers as a gentleman that is tricked does his tailor or periwig maker. So, like, if you fuck up my hairstyle, I'm going to change.
It's so hard to find a good periwig maker in the city these days. You got to go downtown.
You got to go downtown. So this next section I call Drama at the Source. You're not ready. You are not ready.
A comedy.
A comedy. Drama at the Source, comma, with Mrs. Manley, comma, or maybe Thomas Baker, comma, a comedy. A dramedy. Okay. So after publishing edition 18, Mrs.
Of 51, but she doesn't know it at the time.
She doesn't know that.
Okay.
She publishes 18. Mrs. Crackenthorpe had been, quote, disingenuously treated by the publisher B. Bragg. So she makes the decision after B. Bragg publishes and distributes number 18 that she's going to move to A. Baldwin, beginning with number 19 in August of 1709. And this is my understanding of the words. This is part of that article that I was like, what? Yeah, B. Bragg allegedly, so her first publisher, began publishing a fake version of the female tattler, but was soon outed by Mrs. Crackenthorpe in edition number 35.
Just like in Bridgerton.
Exactly. You don't even know what you don't know. In number 35, which was published on September 26th. I don't have the year. I think it's 1709. In Mrs. Crackenthorpe's word, in edition 35, B. Bragg, quote, set up some pitiful scoundrel to impose upon the town a sham paper upon another person's foundation and talks of ladies' drawing rooms who has never yet admitted into tolerable company. So, this is scathing. So unfortunate to receive but 3 half-crowns for writing 17 spurious fake tattlers.
So she was like, you can tell that you're bad at writing and you didn't make any money off of it either. And I just pulled my column from use. Hell yeah.
Isn't that so iconic?
Yes.
Yeah, amazing. So around the time that number 21 was published, so that is potentially in the span of time that it was the fake tattler.
Right.
The female tattler was in some this is an insane sentence. Was in some kind of a musical scolding match.
What?
With another rival paper.
Is she you? What do you mean?
I don't know. So
what do you mean a rival musical?
They were like essentially writing like limericks, but like like song lyrics at each other.
They'll absolutely do that.
Yeah. So she was in this fight with the British Apollo, which was written by men. And it seems that they were basically writing offensive song lyrics in their respective papers about each other.
Nice. Okay.
So around this time, the female tattler was theoretically dealing with the imposter. Go for it.
It's like a really great Facebook comment section or like Twitter thread where you're just like, I love this so much.
Yeah.
For a couple years, there was this like trope that me and my friends who were coaching at nationals would just read the Facebook page for the Coaches Association, right? Which is, of course, it's informal, but it was like
Facebook has all the tea.
it's so good. And like, with love to my coaches, we can at times be a dramatic bunch of people. So it was just a bunch of people complaining about problems they could solve on their own
In
or
like
should have
30
already
seconds,
known. And then every now and then, like a John Cena wild accusation would come across, and then everyone would be like, "Whoa!" And some people would be like, "I don't know if you should talk about that." And there was someone else would be like, "Yeah, we need to talk about that. We need to talk about that issue in our community right now." And you would just be like, "Yes,
Fight.
yes, this is the most unproductive way to address this issue." Yes, like we have literally a publication write a letter into the publication, like read our professional magazine, and like go to some coaches conferences and like hold a couple panels. Like there are structures in place, and this isn't one of them.
But sure, Facebook will solve it.
I know.
Exactly. So around this time, the female tattler was theoretically the imposter. And potentially there was also an inquiry from a grand jury about like a libel case or something. And also maybe this is the only time I saw this, but maybe a blackmailer pretending to be her.
Nice. Good. Okay.
So like someone was blackmailing people and
God,
being
it really
like,
is Bridgerton.
give me however much money and I won't publish this in the female tattler.
Yeah.
So the British Apollo took the chance to celebrate the fact that law enforcement was after her in these badly written lyrics. Remember, most people thought at this point Miss Crackenthorpe was Thomas Baker, but some were entertaining other possibilities.
Okay.
This is what the British Apollo posted.
You'll say she is some mother mad in disguise, trained up from her British in abuses and lies. Or else you may think about her scurrilous tongue. From Billingsgate, Bridewell, or Newgate, she sprung. Used gate twice there in that sentence. That's fine.
That's badly written. She it's right there.
Admitting all this, as it seems pretty plain, regard to her sex might have awarded the cane. But others will swear that this wise undertaker betrayeds an at knee by name of is a beer.
Don't know what any of those words mean.
Anthony Baker.
Yeah. Okay.
Who rambles about with a female disguise on and lives upon scandal as toads do on poison.
It's a bad song.
That last word, they are trying to say poison.
Yeah. It's even
spelled
Poyson.
They were like, don't say it that way. Say
you know that they were like
they
were like writing it and they're like hyping each other up like, yeah, bro, that's really good.
Nice,
Yeah, write that down.
Parentheses, don't forget the parentheses.
Yes. Oh yeah, and yeah. So by trades an attorney by name is a baker. And they took out the like middle letters of all the words.
You say attorney, my name is a baker.
Yeah.
I read it as Anthony, my name is a baker.
Yeah, his name is Thomas Baker. He is an attorney.
Oh,
yeah, he's a lawyer.
Okay. Sorry, I only remember the Baker part.
You're good. So number 35, which is published on September 26, 1709, is when theoretically the original Crackenthorpe returns. On October 19th, a grand jury rules on the case of the female tattler. For 6 editions following that grand jury case, the paper releases as normal. And then on the 7th edition, following the jury, number 51 was published on November 2nd, 1709. Mrs. Crackenthorpe announces that she is stepping down with a single sentence offered as reason.
Ooh.
Quote, affront offered to her by some rude citizens, altogether unacquainted with her person.
So, in other words, I'm being pressured to quit by people who don't know who I am, truly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Number 51 also introduces the new authors, which will be referred to, I think, as like the Society of Ladies or something like that. So number 52, the heading of the page changes from the original, which had a portrait like of a fake Mrs. Crackenthorpe, and this is what that looked like. And I want you to read the like underline kind of thing and describe it to the people. This is what the original looked like.
By Mrs. Crackenthorpe, a lady that knows everything.
Isn't that incredible?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Also, like, some of this writing is just absolutely out of here.
Oh, yeah. And I have if you're curious, I have in my sources towards or I don't know where I'll put it. It's an archive. The source is Internet Archives, I believe. You can read every version or every release of the female tattler. I didn't get around to it because I didn't have that much time to use ChatGPT.
To translate even
to
more.
translate all of this shit.
Sorry if that laugh sounded so weird. It caught me mid-yawn.
Yawn, yeah.
You're doing a great job. It's just first day back after winter break for me right now. And so
we both tend to yawn like when we're not telling the story. It just happens. It's just your brain needing more oxygen. You're just thinking so much.
I also think it's legitimately because you and I do not stop and slow down except when we get told the story.
I thought you were about to say it's legitimately because I'm bored. And I was about to punch you in the face.
Like 95 episodes in, it's like, yeah, I got some feedback. No. And instead I'm just like, we're both so busy. Like that compliment had to have completely caught you off guard then.
Yes.
Because I'm like,
I was like,
I'll speak from that
good God.
I'll speak from an I statement right now. I don't stop moving in my life Monday to Sunday, run it back until I am seated in this chair and it's 100% your story.
Your body is just like,
yeah, like a little bit. Like I'm enjoying this and I've always loved the stories you tell me. And like it's like the one time each week that my body's like, you don't got to do anything right now, but just have funny thoughts on what's going on. And like my entire body downshifts.
yeah.
So thanks for that.
Yeah, there you go.
And I am not bored. Remember 18 minutes ago when I said you were killing this episode? You're doing such a good job.
You can say whatever you want. Your actions speak louder than words. That's what anxiety is like, bitch. Fuck off. So number 52. Instead of saying by Mrs. Crackenthorpe, a lady that knows everything, it says written by a society of ladies. As mentioned, the sudden departure aligns a little too well with the arrest of Mrs. Manley. Mrs. Crackenthorpe was succeeded by the Society of Ladies. The pseudonyms for the ladies, it's theoretically a group, were Artesia, Arabella, Rosella, Sophronia, and some more. And then, as I've already mentioned, the second authorship was much less successful, and the female tattler had a steady decline and then folded after a year. And it was 58 publications since 51.
So 109.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know how to do math.
You're literally an engineer.
I'm not in my brain right now. I don't know who's talking. It's Monet. Okay, so we're going to talk just a few of examples that I could pull that were easy to digest from the female tattler, from Mrs.
This is
Crackenthorpe.
300-year-old gossip coming to you hot, live, and into your ears.
Yeah.
Or car radio.
Yes. Madame Slendersense is the person we're going to talk about for a second, was described as having, quote, lately fallen ill of a swelling she received by a slip the last ball night after an implied alliance with a French dancing master.
So she had sex with a French person and now she's pregnant.
Yeah.
I was able to figure that out. That's what it means.
I took it as.
Swelling.
I couldn't find anything to confirm that that's what the swelling meant, but I think half the fun of reading Miss Crackenthorpe is just inference.
Yeah. Sure, yeah. Because it's like, I mean, in theory, if she fell dancing and her ankle's swelling, and so that's like the cover, but it's not. It's a Miss Slender Slim?
Slender Sense.
Slender Sense is, because she's no longer slender. She was since slender.
Since slender. Crackenthorpe cites her sources.
That's so good. I love wordplay. That was
Yeah.
Hey, look at me. Yes.
Nice. That was good. Good. You got me. So Crackenthorpe cites her sources from this one as Mrs. Manlove, which is also a pseudonym, Mrs. Manlove, who generally searches into the bottom of such affairs and who solemnly protests.
Mrs. Manlove?
Mrs. Manlove.
Less creative.
Yeah, less creative. But I mean, you got to be less creative for the person that's not the subject, you know? Solemnly protests. She saw them go up one pair of stairs together. What they did there, she can't tell. But the lady has been ailing ever since.
I'm so obsessed with this.
I know.
You know, they know. We all know that I rewatch Downton Abbey every summer.
Yeah. So another example is the exposure of a certain Beau Maskwell, and you'll read this top one.
In the box.
Yeah.
One of the walking gentlemen of the age, a person sans consequence, who every day makes his tour of public places with a kind of thoughtless serenity, who has studied piquet more than Asclepius ever did physics, can slightly place the cards to his own advantage. So he's a card cheat.
Yes. So they're saying, do not play cards with this guy because you will find yourself hustled.
Oh, God. Someone should really research gossip.
Yeah. This is another one. Lady Fadler, who was, quote, constitutionally this is really okay. Sorry. Constitutionally unable to visit her friends at the right time.
Wait, hold on. Is that just a read of her personality, or is that a scandal? Hey, our friend who gets it wrong every time.
Yeah.
She has her own GST, gay standard time.
Yes.
Like several of her friends
If
do.
you invite her, she's engaged. If you have business with her, she's 50 miles off. But if you are in private company, or if you are in tears for the death of a relationship, she comes full of Mrs. Crump's wedding that the bride looked very silly. The bridegroom was frightened out of his wits. I don't know what that last part is, but basically it's like at the wrong time, she's there.
She's a complete and total. She's the original recorded cock block.
Yeah.
Like she's when you're in private company is like, I don't.
Yeah.
Sorry.
In her articles, she detailed, this is the next thing. Articled about Lady Coupler's wind and Mrs. Slipshoe's flirting. Even more salacious.
Is wind fart or just talking?
Yes.
Okay.
I think talking. It could be. I don't know. She reported on one lady's attempt at shoplifting a gilded teapot from the nearby India House, the tea house. Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff you got to get a haberdashery.
Like a teapot? That's not a small thing.
No.
Like, where are you? I mean, I stole.
Say it in a mirror.
I only am a kleptomaniac for one thing.
The way you're able to hold on to it and eat Nutella at the same time is actually what should be studied.
Yeah. I was dedicated to the bit that day. Okay. She also reported on the daughter of a well-bred lady claiming she had a preference for the footman in front of a large crowd of company.
Footman.
Sorry,
footman. I'm like, ew. And then I was like, wait, footman's a position. So she had a crush on the footman?
And then I think what happened, I read this, her mom was like, you need to marry so-and-so. And she's like, I love him. And there's like a bunch of people around.
And she's literally like, who are you talking about right now? I don't know any of their names. Who are you talking about right now?
Exactly.
But daddy, I love him. Who? And I'll fire him. But who?
And
Names.
I'll fire him. Okay. This comes from a source. Should I read this? I'll read the first part of this. Okay. This is a quote from a website of someone that read all of the female tattlers and then reviewed them.
Nice.
Or reviewed some of them.
I love the internet.
I do
I
too.
love the internet so much.
So
Make that a TikTok series.
Yeah. Quote, possibly my favorite of the Crackenthorpe entries was about the public, trigger warning, we're going to talk about some public execution for like a brief second.
Okay.
About the public dissection of a hanged man.
Oh, okay. Yep. Okay. Right into it.
That's it. We're not talking about that anymore. Which focused primarily on the reactions of the assorted, curious Londoners who went to see it, particularly butchers who scoffed that they could slit open many more carcasses in the time it took the surgeon to cut open one.
They're all sweetie Todds.
Yeah, the butchers are like, come on.
So only because now I just feel like required to say it because, say it with me, the curse of my history degree.
Sure.
A lot of people who were marched to the guillotine during the French Revolution, because they were almost always nobility or the clerics, did so with like pride and their head held high. Yeah. And then occasionally a person would be brought out to the guillotine and they would be like screaming and begging up until the very end. Yeah. And it's written that those who begged actually really unsettled the crowd. And like the nobility, they were all like, oh, yes, do it. But when a person was like terrified of what was about to happen
people
to them,
actually started feeling empathy.
Yeah, it like ruined the time for them.
Yeah.
No, I think both. Yeah.
Crazy.
I know.
Crazy how that works. So this next section is called So Let's Gossip. I'm going to be honest.
All right. When I was a senior, I dated a freshman. Or whatever it was.
No comment.
See literally last episode of Maia's story.
Comment.
What I just said was fiction, but mean and truthful.
No comment. This section is actually just an excuse to to tell you about the specific person I happened upon.
Wait,
in my
this
research.
whole episode is just to talk about this one person?
No. This
okay.
section, like, let's gossip for a second. I found this person because I was reading an article. I mentioned this later, but anyway.
Was it a TikTok?
No, this was an actual like scientific, educational. I think it was written by Paul Bunyan. Paul Bunyan Anderson. Sorry, I should have completed that sentence.
Oh yeah,
Paul Bunyan
that was
Anderson.
Like a real science.
It was
Paul
really.
and his axe.
I tried to look up Paul Bunyan Anderson. Damn near impossible. You can't because it's all just Paul Bunyan.
I think
shit.
you got to do Anderson Paul Bunyanson. Paul Bunyan. Like put Anderson first. So
I tried doing it in the quotation marks. Like it's
all AI now anyway, so it doesn't even matter.
It doesn't even matter. So anyway, I was reading an article about Delia, and there is a theory that Delia had a long affair with John Tilley.
Oh, the person she got out of prison.
Yes.
Oh.
And maybe had
and
a few.
It all comes back at the end.
Yeah.
Okay.
She probably had a few kids with John Tilley. There's evidence.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe one. I don't know. There's evidence kind of linking her and John Tilley to this child. It was like she had paid someone for some services for the kid. It was obviously for the kid. And then he had like the debt from her transferred to John Tilley. And so
they literally didn't put their Venmo transactions on private, is what you're trying to say?
It's literally what happened. And so some historian was like, what?
Like once a month, I just double check that mine's on private.
And anyway, so the historians are kind of like that. And then they're also looking through, we're going to talk about why they don't know this from Delia's own accounts. Okay. There's an account of another famous lady who had some issues with Delia because Delia wrote about her family in the New Atlantis. And so she's like writing in her journal all of this gossip that she thinks she knows about Delia. And a lot of it's false. And the people that wrote the article are like, this one's not true. This one's probably not true because of this reason. The one that is true is about John Tilley that she writes about. And so that was like their confirmation for it. This woman's name, Lady Cowper.
Like from Bridgerton.
I literally
who does it badly.
Yes, I literally lost my mind when I saw that name. So Lady
Don't
Cowper.
you love it when the research gives you something like that?
Yes.
When you're like, this was why it was worth it.
Yes.
5 hours in and I figured it out. The heart of the story.
The way I literally gasped. It was like 11 p.m. I'm sitting on that couch and I was like, so I Google Lady.
Imagine Casey. You okay?
Yeah, you
Head
good?
popping in.
You good? I Google Lady Cowper. And I come across this Wikipedia page, and I'm basically going to read you this Wikipedia page, but like in my own words. This Lady Cowper is the Lady Cowper that's, I think, one generation removed. So the Lady Cowper that's writing about Delia, I think her name was Sarah, and I saw some connections to her, but it wasn't super strong. She didn't seem like a really important character. I think this Lady Cowper, the reason that she's mad at Delia is because Delia wrote that about her like son Spencer Cowper had a trial, and that's what was in the New Atlantis. Okay. And his dad was the first Earl Cowper.
Okay.
The Miss Cowper I'm gonna talk about was married to the 5th Earl Cowper, so it's like a bit removed. Anyway, this is all just an excuse to tell you about this Lady Cowper because I read the Wikipedia page and I was like, oh my god. So anyway, let's gossip. In the true name of gossip, all this comes from Wikipedia. Truthfully, I didn't have the time to go that deep. So anyway, Emily Lamb is her name. Was born to Peniston and Elizabeth Lamb in 1787. Already, there's scandal. Because, see, Elizabeth, her mother, was known to have a lot of love affairs.
Ooh.
And so Emily's paternity has never really been verified. And it's possible she was not born from Peniston. Peniston was Viscount of Melbourne in 1781. William Lamb is her oldest brother, and he held the premiership of England twice. In his writings, he referred to Emily fondly as, quote, that little devil Emily.
I mean, very much sibling relationship, though.
In return, Emily, who didn't like his wife, referred to his wife as, quote, the little beast.
I mean, can't relate, but okay.
Incredible. There's another brother, Frederick, who was a noted diplomat, and then another brother, George, was a playwright and journalist.
So it's kind of turned out pretty well together.
Big family. Yeah. The entire family was part of the Whig Party and was close with Queen Victoria. Around 1790, when Emily was 18, she married Peter Clavering Cowper, the 5th Earl Cowper, who was 9 years older than her. The Earl was known to be dull and slow in speech. Some viewed this negatively. Others thought he was just...
What an advantage.
Yeah. Others thought he was just a quiet, pleasant man who preferred to avoid society and politics. Fair enough.
Huge you energy.
Yeah. If you know me in real life, I'm not this talkative. Well, sometimes. Give me a couple glasses of champagne and I'll talk. In the marriage, Emily, I think, got bored and became a really big part of the social scene and was a part of a very exclusive club called the Almack's Club and was, quote, undoubtedly the most popular patroness of the club.
Ooh.
She was known for being extraordinarily charming, kind, warm, and generous, which was a big contrast to some of the other patronesses. She was described as, quote, grace put in action, whose softness was as seductive as her joyousness.
She's a saint. Bless her heart. She's a saint.
Literally, literally. And you can root for everyone in the story, I'm telling you. She would drop anything for the people she liked, even sometimes the people she disliked. For example, her sister-in-law, the little beast, his name was Carolyn. Carolyn at some point was barred from Almack, which was a sign of like deep social disgrace.
Sure.
And Emily managed to pull the strings to get that ban
Get her back
lifted
in.
on Carolyn.
Nice.
Yep.
Wow.
The Cowpers.
Do it for family.
Yeah. The Cowpers had 5 kids together. So Emily and Peter, I think his name
The
is.
old guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Had 5 kids together. Well, at least the children were born while Emily was married to Lord
the old
Cowper.
guy. Yep.
I think 3 of them are Lord Cowper's kids.
Okay.
At least 2 of them have their parentage is highly speculated.
Okay.
Because Emily had a lot of love affairs.
She was social.
Yeah.
She loved everybody.
With like the Corsican diplomat and the Russian ambassador were 2 of the notable ones. And so one of those kids they think is the Russian ambassador's kid.
Anytime the phrase Russian ambassador ends up in a story about the British
it's the
aristocracy.
Corsican diplomat's kid. Anyway, sorry. Doesn't matter.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It just always adds like a level of spice.
it
Like I feel
really
like I'm reading Murder on the Orient Express.
Oh, yeah. So at Almack's, there is a man who has been nicknamed Cupid.
Okay.
His name is Henry John Temple. He is the 3rd Viscount Palmerston. He was a fuckboy. He was known to have affairs with many of the patronesses of Almack's, but not Emily until her husband started declining in health.
Oh, interesting. How funny.
Crazy. That's
wild. Yeah.
Yeah, so he starts getting ill and generally having a decline in health, and so Emily and Henry start having a love affair. Because what do you do?
Naturally.
What do you do? So remember,
She needs comfort.
she needs someone to
Also,
talk to.
we're having a good time. To be clear, I
Yeah.
don't necessarily
Oh, no.
blame her for not wanting to stick around a man that was a decade older than her at 18
and
already.
yeah, and like dull
Yeah.
compared to her her charm, I guess. So Emily's whole family, if you'll remember, were all Whigs.
Right.
Well, Henry, I know. If you want
Beauty and the Beast ass over here. Now they're all clocks.
Yeah.
So it's just complete
But these
nonsense.
guys over here, candles.
And for some reason, French. They're the only ones.
For those of you who don't know, Whigs is not W-I-G-S. It's W-H-I-G-S. Not that it changes anything.
Wig parties.
Yeah. Well, Henry is a Tory. But after spending a lot of time with Emily and Emily's family, he changed political affiliation.
To be a Whig.
Yeah. And he even ran as a Whig candidate. And if you look at I clicked on his Wikipedia page because I was like, maybe. And it's really long. Like, he did a lot of shit. And I was like, never mind. Not interested in that.
Back.
Like, you know how it has like the
Yes.
yeah, all the links on the side that you could go to, and it was like all down the page, and I was like, never mind.
My favorite page is like someone's alive and dead, and there's one section, and it's like the important thing they did,
Yeah.
and they like dated one of our main characters at one point. I'm like, good, let's go ahead and build this world a little bit with this like 15-second
article,
logo.
yeah,
Exactly.
yep.
And he wrote Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah.
Right? Anyways, moving on, and it's like, oh my god.
Yeah. Yes, literally. I'm
And we're
rooting
back.
for you. Like,
I
what
know.
the fuck is wrong with you?
I hope that's how we come
I
back in.
hope so.
Okay, tell me more gossip.
Okay. Cupid. Yeah, so they get together as Lord Cowper is slowly declining in health. At some point, I didn't write this down, but at some point, Emily's mom passes, and while Emily's mom is like in the process of like dying or like soon to death, she basically tells Emily like, keep Lord Palmerston close, because she's like Lord Cowper's probably going to die, and it seems like you guys would make a good match.
Oh, and you can remarry as soon as he's dead.
Yeah,
so kind of
yeah.
with a pillow.
I don't think that's what she was saying, but she was like, keep that one around. He's a good one.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
then be clear before I commit murder. First degree.
Premeditated.
With like a clear and obvious motive.
Yeah. So in 1837, Lord Cowper dies. And so the natural next step should be that Emily and Palmerston get married, right?
Right.
But at this point, Emily is 50 and Henry is 53.
Okay.
Great. Just die already.
No, it's the Golden Bachelor.
I was like, this is the 1800s. Like, that's old.
We don't believe that about people.
No.
My parents are older than that.
Yeah, but like in the 1800s, it's like, that's like pretty ancient.
It's from the Grinch. Are you two
still alive? It's still living, yeah. So the rest of Emily's family, her mom aside, who's not around anymore, only know Henry as Cupid and like the Tory guy that she had been bringing around.
You're like, hey, Emily, what's your situationship's deal?
Yeah. And so they know him as a womanizer, and so they don't approve initially of the union, and so they take the matter before Queen Victoria.
Oh.
And Queen Victoria approves of the union. And on December 16th, 2 years later, 1839.
That's so messy.
I know. They were wed. So at this point, Henry is 55 and Emily is 52. The two's marriage, quote, by all accounts, was a decidedly happy one.
Cute.
And now you're going to
reach on there. I love that.
read this.
Okay.
This is going to mess you up.
Quote, his attentions to Lady Palmerston, when they both of them were well stricken in years, were those of a perpetual courtship. The sentiment was reciprocal, and I have frequently seen them go out on a morning to plant some trees, almost believing that they would eat the fruit or sit under the shade. What the hell is wrong with you? Your episode's on gossip.
Keep reading.
Like this next part? Or
Oh,
what?
no. Oh, sorry.
Okay, I was going to say.
Sorry, yeah.
They're never going to sit under the shade of the tree or eat its fruits.
It was so cute.
The first half is like, they're in love, and I've seen it with my own eyes, and they're foolish.
It's wholesome.
Me
it's so
writing
cute.
you a poem about fish for your wedding.
I was
Foolish.
No, the real reason I want to share this is that I thought Lady Cowper A was interesting. I thought like the romance between the like classic super charming woman and like the fuckboy was really cute.
Right.
And then this
finally
last
settles down.
This last part, I was like, oh my god, love is
It's a proof
real.
from the Ladies Society or whatever.
Yeah. So Emily didn't give up her social involvement and still hosted often.
Okay.
And remember, Henry is still in Parliament as a Whig candidate or as a Whig minister. And so oftentimes the pair would host foreign diplomats and Lord Palmerston would
Including
ask...
the Russian ambassador.
God, I hope so. Lord Palmerston would ask Lady Palmerston to float his ideas to the guests and then report back to him on the reception as a means
I
of...
love a political
I
man.
know!
I love it so much.
As a means of...
I respect you as an equal in this partnership.
I know! As a means of unofficially testing the diplomatic waters before publicly aligning with an opinion.
You can always get me on love as a trope, by
Isn't
the way.
that so
and it is
cute?
a trope.
Like, it's so cute. And then I'll have you read, I didn't put it in a box, but it is the one that starts with she could not cure.
No one puts this quote in a box.
Shut
She could not cure his notorious lack of punctuality, since this was a fault she shared to the full. Queen Victoria, while staying with them at Broadlands, complained that Emily had kept her waiting for an hour for a carriage ride. It was a standing joke in London society that they were always so late for dinner that neither of them ever had soup.
So funny. Fucking love that shit.
I've never once seen them at a first chorus. And you have to wonder, like, hi.
They're like, oh my God, hi.
Bye.
Yeah.
Oh my God, the party's already here.
Yeah. Love them so much. From biographer Herbert Bell, quote, if Palmerston brought the greater sum of knowledge and pure intellect to the partnership, his lady was richly dowered in other qualities. Sound sense and delicate sensibilities warmed by beauty and good-heartedness into charm, shrewdness so linked with impulsiveness that one wonders how far her, quote, indiscretions were planned for effect. earnestness and enthusiasm that admit of no such doubt.
So in other words, like she's letting slip these plans and then immediately reporting back so frequently that people are catching on.
At least, well, this is a biography, so
Right.
way after the fact.
Okay.
From biographer Gillian Gill, quote, "The marriage was an inspired political alliance as well as a stab at personal happiness. Harry and Emily were supremely well matched. As the husband of a beautiful, charming, intelligent, rich woman whose friends were the best people in society, Palmerston at last had the money, the social setting, and the personal security he needed to get to the very top of British politics. Lady Palmerston made her husband happy as he did her, and she was a political power in her own right. In the last and most successful decades of the Palmerstons' life, she was his best advisor and most trusted..." I don't know what that word is. Amanuensis? I don't know. Theirs was one of the greatest marriages of the century.
I love that.
I know.
And they do not come across that well in Bridgerton.
No.
Cowper has like a redemption arc eventually, but not initially.
Not that one, yeah. So,
and we know that about them because of the gossip blogs.
Exactly. Lord Palmerston lived until 1865, and then Emily, Lady Palmerston, followed him in 1869. And these are pictures of them. The top one is when she is 16, and then the bottom two are Lady Palmerston in 1860, so when she's along in years, and then Lord Palmerston at age 50.
Oh, and I love it because you get the transition of like paintings to photographs. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. She looks shrewd. Mm-hmm. Henry looks dapper.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, a young person.
Yeah.
Good for them.
Love Israel.
I mean, I would like to see it.
Same.
I'm kidding.
Just kidding.
Grew up with my parents.
You did. Yeah, you did.
You have Casey.
I do. He's fine. Just kidding. I love him.
That felt really good. Yeah.
I do. He's great. He bought me a weighted blanket, and he bought me a heated blanket, and that's game changing. Delia's legacy. We're going back to Delia.
Oh, okay.
So we talked about her in 1709 when she allegedly was Mrs. Crackenthorpe, right? And then she gets thrown in jail and then eventually gets released. In 1711, she succeeds Jonathan Swift as editor of the Examiner, a Tory paper. She is one of England's first professional women political journalists. But this is not really well documented, and we'll get back to it because I Googled like first woman political journalist, first journalist in England, like all of these things, and it was always different people. But they were always, the years that they were active was after 1711. So I don't, In 1714, The Adventures of Ravella is a fictitious autobiography narrated by a male that she called Lovemore. Many pieces of the autobiography were based on the truth of her life. For example, she says in the book that she was born in Hampshire, in one of those islands which formerly belonged to France, where her father was governor. Historians believe the truth here is that she was born on the island of Jersey during the period where her father was lieutenant governor of the royal forts and castles on the island.
Okay. And
then here is a quote from one of the academics that studies her. Quote, "If we actually examine Roger Manley's," so her father's, "extensive published works, we notice an obvious difference between them and his daughter's publications. While his histories are dry, chronological, and somewhat predictable products of an often obsequious royalist-seeking patronage, his daughter's works are satirical and anecdotal, full of colorful gossip designed to tarnish the reputations of her enemies."
There's a bit more venom.
Yeah. A closer look at her father's rhetorical style, however, suggests a literary flair and a political flexibility in his letters that he might not always have been able to fully express in his official writings or his published histories. Moreover, his published histories themselves demonstrate a talent for partisan propaganda that his daughter would both inherit and develop with satiric panache. And you know what else I found out, Grant?
What?
The multiverse expands. I'm going to have you read this. You're not going to read all of it, so don't get freaked out. I'm going to tell you when to stop.
Okay. I mean, I can read it all if
you'll
want
also
me to.
figure out when to stop.
Delia, is that what you've been calling her?
Yeah.
Delia Delia Manley writes of her father, quote, "None could be more brave, more loyal, more virtuous," end of quote. Certainly her father, whom she describes as a scholar in the midst of a camp, must have been courageous. He also clearly enjoyed sharing the narratives of his adventure. As an officer in Lord Byron's regiment.
That's all you need to say.
So we're all the way back to Frankenstein and Mary Shelley now.
Yeah, baby.
Amazing.
I know. I read that and I was like, ah!
A second Easter egg. Yeah. Also just known as media literacy.
Yeah. Yeah. All the people watching Wicked and they're like, this is an Easter egg. I was like, that's part 2, baby.
It's the plot.
That's the plot.
You understand the scene.
Yeah, you're going to be fine. You're going to be okay. So the multiverse expands. He served Lord Byron. So you'll kind of gather that a lot of the higher ranking members of society around this time, while there's not a lot of reliable documentation, there is people have been able to put together pieces about a lot of this history, like Lady Cowper, like her father, like
Mrs. Manley.
Yeah, or not Mrs. Manley. Because Delia, a lot of it is historians think this is where she was. We think she was living with her sister and she probably didn't have a lot of money because of this, and this.
Right.
But that doesn't really make sense for the time that we're in and her status. So not much is saved detailing all of Delia's life. As for the early part of her life, we can blame the patriarchy because she was a daughter.
And we should.
Yeah. For the latter half, well, she didn't want to leave much behind. In her will, she asked that most of her personal papers, with the exception of several drafts of plays that she had written, be destroyed with her death. For this reason...
So she's gay.
I don't think that's true.
No, it's not.
I know. I think she really did like John Tilley. Yeah. For this reason, I think it's even more compelling that she is the true identity of Mrs. Crackenthorpe. And also, the most badass piece is she gets the rare privilege of dictating how she will be remembered, regardless of her actions, because the only solid record of her now is her fictitious autobiography,
Hell yeah.
The Adventures of Ravella, from which historians are now able to piece together her past.
Sure.
This, as well as other individuals' mentions of her in their own personal documents. For example, Lady Cowper gossiping about Delia in her own speaking, or in her own writings. Lady Cowper, I read that. She remains a mystery to history, but it's safe to say many after her would take inspiration from her bravery, her wit, and her work. For example, maybe she inspired one Eliza Haywood, who would publish her own version of the female tattler, which she called The Female Spectator, which was published between 1744 and 1746. The Female Spectator would also focus on the education of women and would publish long essays on intellectual subjects that would be interesting to women at the time, including essays on botany, to travel, to politics. Here's a quote about that. Whilst these papers do not assume too much learning from their readers, they also do not patronize them. And so Delia really got to stay invisible per her characters in the New Atlantis, but still influence the future.
That's awesome.
Because they think Miss Crackenthorpe is probably the inspiration of Lady Whistledown, and it's most likely Delia.
I think it's wonderful that we have chosen, rumor has it, and then both of us basically zoomed in accidentally to the same time period.
Yeah.
And yours is about a woman who so little is known because of her own choice.
Yeah.
And mine was kind of the opposite side of that coin. We know so much, but have a hard time proving it because we don't have her intentions or anything written down. Well done. And next time I'm watching Bridgerton with Lydia, I'm going to be like, did you know Miss Cowper? Real person. Real.
There's a lot of Lady Cowpers if you go
There's
through.
photos of her. She died in the 1860s.
That story of them really got me.
I see what I was thinking there for a little bit towards the end is they deserve more time.
Yeah.
She should have married Henry first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was too busy screwing.
And who knows? Maybe that time with Mr. Cowper gave her the wisdom and worldly knowledge to be a good advisor.
Because she wasn't so focused on her husband. She was just out being a member of society.
Not that I necessarily believe it, but the universe gives you what you need when you need it, not what you want whenever you want it.
The recounting of their relationship was just
they also probably sat under some of those trees.
They probably just had trees. I mean, I don't think they were
I think
not
most people
off.
plant them as samplings, Not sampling.
Saplings.
Yep, there we go. Ooh, is this a free sampling?
Gross.
One time we were at a tournament and I came out of the judges lounge, which is, for coaches and judges.
Yeah.
And I had a small plate, it was like a bowl of nachos. And my students were like, Mister, what is that? And I go, oh, it's garbage. I found it on the floor. Nom, 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 nom. I'm eating garbage. What do you mean, what is it? It's nachos. And they go, Mister, we obviously were going to then ask, where did you get it?
Yeah.
I was like,
okay, well, you should have asked that first.
It's garbage. Nom, nom, nom. I don't know what to tell you.
At some point, I was going into the judges' lounge to get lunch or something, and Lydia was like,
cold cuts rolled up around cheese.
She was like, and then we should eat it in there because I don't want to answer questions from the students when we bring it back. And I was like, fair enough.
She's seasoned. She's done this before. She knows what she's doing.
I think I'm. They don't know me well enough to ask me. And I did eat a meatball sub in front of them, and nary a single person approached me.
Well, I think it's really sweet. You think my children would eat a whole meatball sub? You and I, absolutely. Lydia, she already's doing it.
She's already eaten one.
No, they eat plenty of incredibly gross things in front of me all the time. And that's fun. This was fun. And I've realized I'm literally gossiping about my students right now.
See? It gets you. It gets you.
No, this was well done. And I hope, obviously, everyone's taking away a little bit of Bridgerton knowledge, a little bit of 300-year-old gossip, I guess 200, 150-year-old gossip, but also a little science around the importance of gossip.
Yeah. So don't just be like, God, they're such a gossip. It's like, yeah, they're probably higher ranking than you in the social structure.
They're such a gossip.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
hot.
Good.
Again.
Gay again.
Yeah, gay again. Gay again. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, ready for the speech?
Yeah.
All right.
I'm always ready. Okay, I'm seeing this was 18 pages.
Okay, trying to figure out how long the episode is.
And it's like 2.5 hours. So that nice. 20 to 20.
Remember when we first hit 2.5 hours and we were so proud of ourselves?
We were like, oh my God, that was a long episode. And then I did Dyatlov Pass and I was like, I'm never doing that again.
Good. I mean, listen, with love, just make it 2 episodes.
I would have if we didn't have Jacob slated.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, friends. Well, thank you for sticking with us, especially those of you who wait until the very end to get the last little bit of ramblings from us. Really, we appreciate it. Gin and tonic. No, I'm kidding.
Don't message us that. Next theme is 2 best friends. I've already announced it, but it's 2 best friends. And I am so insanely, so wickedly excited to do episode 1 of the.
We're actually going to just skip my portion of that. No, I'm
just
kidding.
Been thinking about it so long. I had more of that episode done as of end of last week than I had of this episode done because I've been like, yes.
So if you would like to submit something regarding 2 best friends for our listener episode, part 3, you can email us at wellilaughdpod@gmail.com. You can find us on social media everywhere. We are Well I Laughed Podcast.
Oh, yeah.
If you are looking for additional content, you can join us on Patreon, which gets you 4 additional episodes a month. And finally, if you are looking for the perfect gift to give someone who is hard to shop for, or just in general think it'd be fun to terrorize your friends, you can find us on Cameo.
For the low price of $10.
Great. I had I just get text from Maia and she's like, you need to record it. And I was like, got it.
And then I get to watch it at home alone. And I'm
did not know she was going to be able to watch the videos that I do on my own. So
it really made me giggle.
That was good to know. Good test balloon there.
At some point he goes, so Merry Christmas from me and Maia in spirit. No, she's not dead.
I was like, in memory. No, she's not dead. In jest. No, that's not right. In love. Let's go with love. It's love. We can't give away literally the Cameo content.
I know, but I giggled at that. I was like, nice.
All right. Well, for several of you, we'll see you on Patreon. And until then, see you next week,
Bye,
friends.
love you.
Bye.